Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet? Has to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others. As for me, give me liberty, or give me death.
Smooth as a nicely poured bourbon.
Jazzy, man. Jazzy.
Oh, yeah. Hello, it is the 4 o'clock shadow. Hello, Mark.
Hey guys, long time no see.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing okay.
That's
All
good.
right.
Have our eye concept.
How are you guys doing?
Okay.
Hanging in there, man. Rough week at work, but I'm happy to see the weekend start. So,
Oh boy, yeah. We're in the point where we're doing summer Fridays, and we get off at 3 on Friday, and man, I look forward to it.
yeah, nice.
It is. It is.
Yeah, the only bad thing about my job is it's like a 12-hour day, basically. But
Uh,
I
I'm
thought he
usually
was going to
usually
say.
home by 3:30 in the afternoon, so I got that.
well,
I thought Shadowhawk. I thought you were going to say the only thing bad about my job is it sucks.
Well, that's you. I mean,
that's not
I
the
couldn't-
worst part. Yeah.
I could have just said everything about it, I guess, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't really complain. We're still on a hybrid schedule, so 3 days a week we're in office, and 2 days we work from home, and so that's not too bad. And yeah, I don't have to put any 12-hour days in. I don't know how you do it.
I don't either. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep doing it either. I can tell you that.
Oh,
I didn't have knee problems like that. I had both knees when I was young. I had ACL surgeries on them.
oh, really?
Yeah, and then just recently, probably about a year or two, my left one started acting up on me a little bit. And then it got really bad about 6 months ago. It felt like I tore the ligament again. But it's been so long, and I couldn't afford to take off work, so I
Yeah.
just threw on the old knee brace and been working through it. I called the doctor. What was it? The end of the month last month, so probably almost 2 weeks ago now. And the earliest appointment I could get in to see my joint guy is next Friday. So,
Oh, that's not too bad.
yeah, it was only
I thought
like
you were
a
going to
month.
say 2027 or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's only like a month, but when you're in pain every day, a month is a long time.
Yeah, it is. I did that with when my back went out
Oh,
last
geez,
year. Yeah, I was like, the earliest I think they could get to me was like 2 weeks, and I was like, ugh. But um,
yeah,
but
that's what I
yeah,
worry about now, though, because I'm kind of limping around, and I'm starting to, my hip is starting to feel it, and then my other knee, because it's like carrying most of the weight, I'm starting to feel a little rickety in there. I'm like, come on, I can't do this no more. So,
yeah,
hopefully the doctor will have something he can do to alleviate my strain.
I'm
yeah.
sorry,
I
we
hope
will have
so
to
too.
amputate.
Hey, I'm
Well, if
good.
it stops hurting, yeah.
Yeah,
You know, that
I'm
actually
fine.
happened
I'm
to
fine
my
with that. Get me one of them nice prosthetic legs and put me on
Yeah.
disability, baby. I'm retired.
oh, and it could be like Grindhouse, right? Where you have a machine gun attached to it.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. In case they decide to ride around here anytime soon.
Yeah. I'm amazed at how much of my life now is thinking, how do I do this without hurting my back? Should I
Mhm.
turn this way? I've got like a whole routine about getting out of bed and
Oh yeah, I got to be careful how if I'm walking in a straight line, it's fine. It's
mhm.
when you go to step sideways that the knee is like, oh, I done like that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Start making my turns much more slowly.
Yeah, the worst
Um,
thing I've found is if I accidentally clip a corner or something and just hit
oh,
it and it jerks
yeah,
you, and then you're like, oh, that was bad.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I had surgery on my one shoulder too, so I try to be very careful about like door frames and shit like that. Because I'll
yeah,
still, if I got to wrench too hard on something at work, if I got to like go full force, I can only do
uh,
it for about 10 seconds or so before I get like a stabbing pain in my bicep. So I'm like,
yikes.
nope, not pushing it. Don't want to go through that again. 'Cause, yeah, that shoulder surgery was terrible. The knees were nothing, man. It was just in and out, and
Yeah,
I recovered in like 2 weeks. Felt like brand new. I was good to go. But that shoulder, ooh. That
yeah,
was,
They say rotary cuff surgery is not any
yeah.
fun
yeah.
either.
Then that's what it was. Because my
Mhm.
rotator cuff was fucked up, which snapped my whatever that ligament is that holds your bicep down. So my bicep
Oh,
just kind of like snapped up and pop-eyed out at the top of my, or at the bottom of my shoulder. It
ouch.
looked like I was just like flexing like a maniac. I was like, what in the hell?
Oh,
And when it first happened, it didn't really hurt that bad. Now the next morning, it hurt like a bitch. But
yeah. The nerves had to catch up with what had
I
happened
think
to it.
so. But yeah, it was crazy, dude. My bicep just shot up my arm like old fashioned blinds, those self rollers.
Uh-huh.
And, like, oh, it was the weirdest feeling too.
uh,
I think that
it's
was
fun. It's fun getting
that was
old.
yeah. I think that was the weirdest thing though, because I felt it like roll up in my arm, but I
Mm.
didn't know what was going on until I actually got a chance to look at it. And but I heard the pop when the ligament let go. It was like audible. The guy I was working with was like, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was me."
I'll just be passing out over here.
Snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies. Just add milk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he looked at it and he's like, "Oh, you want to go ahead and stop the job?" Or I was like, "Shit, we only got a couple left," and we had these big 400-pound pallet thingies. They're walkways,
Uh-huh.
so lay out in the back of this one park. And we'd been doing it all day, just the two of us. We were supposed to have a full crew come out, but nope, just two of us. And it was the last load. I was like, "Fuck it." So the last two, I took off the truck, with my arm all jacked up. And then
Still
we
got
rolled
another
back.
week till summer. The 20th this summer.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I get to see my.
Yeah. Today is my daughter's birthday.
Ah, happy birthday to her.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Hey,
I'm
I don't know
supposed.
My wife, out of 3 kids, she had 2 kids on Friday the 13th.
Wow.
One in September. the other one was like December 29th, maybe, almost New Year's after Christmas.
That's not the 13th. The 29th is not.
No. Today would see Amber's birthday today. Mandy's September 13th.
Oh, okay. There.
And then Rose's, who's in December. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
I wasn't keeping up.
And it happens to be a Friday the 13th today.
And June 6th, just to catch up on birthdays and shout outs. Timothy Olsen's birthday was June 6th. King Leek's birthday was the 7th. George Perez's heavenly birthday on the 9th. Tree Godwin's birthday, 49 years old, on the 10th. Amber's today. A good friend, Susan Bard's, on the 17th. Nobody would know her. Dean Comicsgate birthday on the first day of summer on the 20th. Fade Salvation's birthday is on the 22nd. Robert Wright's birthday he'll be 53 on 23, and I'm forget who Robert Wright is. But anyway, Cross Comics, who was on with us yesterday.
Rick, that was his birthday, right?
His is the 24th. And well, I got written down here. Steve Ditko died on the 29th. Let's see. This is Carrie. Carrie's cat is 11 years old on the 26th. Ha! Shadow.
Yeah.
See, I know Carrie. I write it down.
Speaking of Carrie, oi, Carrie, good to see you. Omer's in the house. Gene Cowell is here.
Gene Cowell.
And Dario Glacier Mountain Comic.
Yes. Shout out to all of you.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Crack a beer and happy Friday.
Mark, I don't know if you know it, but I bought all the Gunsmoke, and I'm about halfway there. I'm on season 10, and there were 20 seasons.
20 seasons.
So you've watched about 250 episodes so far?
Is that how many there were? I mean,
I don't know, but
they had a lot more.
They did more than 20 on a season. So if you're on,
I think they used to do like 22 or 26, like some crazy number.
And in the very early days, they would do like enough for the whole year.
I'm on season 10 that still has Burt Reynolds as Quint in there. It's still in black and white at season 10. I haven't hit color yet.
See, I think when I watched it as a kid, when it was in syndication, they only showed the color. So I don't think I've seen the black and white ones.
And Elsie swears that those were really the best ones, that were in black and white, and they are really, really great. I mean, started in 1955, and I'm getting to the mid 60s. I'm about in 1963 right now, I think, with season 10. Yeah. See, it'll probably switch over to 64 here pretty soon and hit color. But
I picked up a few discs lately. I got this the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers on 4K. The ones they did in the early 70s. Actually, they shot it as one movie, and it was so long they cut it up into two.
Mm-hmm. Then the 70s. Who was in that, Mark? Anybody we know? Or?
Yeah, the guy from Michael York from Logan's Run. Oliver Reed, Raquel Welch, Richard Chamberlain, Christopher Lee, Faye Dunaway. I think this may have been the first thing she ever did. And Charlton Heston was the
that's a heck of a cast on that, dude.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
The Four Musketeers was the first movie I ever saw. My parents took us to the drive-in, and because they knew we'd fall asleep in the back, and you weren't taking a kid to a movie theater where we could cause noise or anything. So
drive-ins are Americana. I mean, I wish they would bring them back, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I grew up with one.
If you never experienced a drive-in movie, you have missed what life is all about.
Yeah. I actually lived across the street from a drive-in for a while.
That's awesome.
This was fascinating. So they used to have these video jukeboxes back in like the 40s, and what they would do is is they had a reel of film that they'd swap out like once a month or something. That
Mhm.
and you'd put in a quarter, it would play what the one song, and then if you put in another quarter, it'd play the next song. You couldn't choose the song, but this is a collection of some of the old soundies, they called them.
Wow.
That
That's
was it. It
interesting.
was very interesting.
Mhm.
Huh.
I-
Yeah, I'd like to.
This cover is, ugh. But I picked up the Blu-ray of Steve Martin's All of Me. Do you remember this movie?
Two Lives.
Uh,
That's a good one.
He used to
Hey,
play all
Mike
the
Wahlberg.
time on cable. The
Mhm.
Lily Tomlin dies and she takes over his body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
All of Me.
I vaguely
Glacier
remember
Mountain
that.
Comics says first movie I ever saw in a drive-in was True Lies. The first one I ever watched was Conan the Barbarian, I believe. With
Oh,
Arnold
Oh, wow.
Schwarzenegger.
the most
I can't even
memorable
remember what my first one at the drive-in was.
the most
Classic.
memorable thing to me was that a trailer for Beyond the Green Door came, or Behind the Green Door, whatever that was called, came
Oh,
on,
yeah.
and my mom sent us to the floorboards for that.
Nah. Dive
Um,
under your seats, kids.
I was excited to get this movie on 4K. It's Norm Macdonald's Dirty Work.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
This
In
is-
fact,
Yeah,
this
that's
is-
the
a great one.
anniversary of that movie was like yesterday, I believe. It's released.
Yeah. And what they did is they went back and because they re-edited the movie when they released it to make it a PG-13. So somebody had like a VHS copy of the original print, and they went back and they rebuilt it. So they have it. They call it the dirtier version. So they
Oh,
have
wow.
it
Oh, cool.
kind of on here. It's a pretty nifty little box set, but this cover is frightening.
Oh, wow. Yes.
You know, Mark, it's like the things are being censored, lost. Like, can we get, and maybe on VHS for sure. I have it on VHS. Who knows if I could transfer them now? Maybe I've got like an unwatched 3 box set of Star Wars that my brother gave to me, but I already had them all, so I never opened it up. It's still sealed. But and I've got other copies, but I mean, you know, can you see the original Star Wars as it came out? No touch-ups, nothing, anymore.
Not legally. Yeah.
Not legally.
Not
Now, see that's kind of revisionism. I want to experience King Kong the way it was in 1933 when it wasn't censored, or with everything in it. I want to experience the original experience without the touch-ups, and I hate that we're, like you said on that job, that somebody rebuilt the original, because I want to see the original experience, the original movie.
Yeah. Now this did have both versions, but I think
That's cool. I'm glad to hear that.
There's some people online who have been rebuilding the Star Wars movies, getting the best pieces that they can from scanning in like films, people that have reels of the film. But no, I think with the Star Wars thing, and I really believe this, the claim is that when they went to make the special edition, they cut it up, and so it couldn't be put back together. But I feel like that's baloney. The thing I think is that if the special edition is not the same movie, and so all the deals they had with percentages for different people, including George Lucas's first wife, go away. So, like, if when he puts out the special edition, he doesn't have to give any money to his wife. His ex-wife, right? So I think
I mentioned this. I mentioned this before, Mark, that I bought, and it was an official release from Hanna-Barbera. Whoops, we lost Shadowhawk for some reason. I bought Johnny Quest, and then when they released it on Blu-ray, they said the uncensored version.
Yes, they tricked
and I'm
us.
like, and they were both the official releases. So the DVD set was not the original ones that I saw in
Yeah.
the 60s. And I'm like, I felt shorted and I didn't even know it,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you remember for a while there, they were putting out Married with Children, but they didn't have the rights to use Love and Marriage. So if you
Mhm.
bought the season set, it was the episodes, but they had like some like little instrumental that would play over the theme song. And
I'm
that's just not the same.
I'm wearing the hat that Elsie gave me.
Oh,
So and
nice.
and he kind of and I kind of sign my stuff standing for my last name Christian. I put like I didn't even realize this when Shadowhawk talked about it, that I do a little heel and 3 crosses to stand for my
Uh-huh.
last name Christian. That's how I sign my stuff because my scrawl is about like this, you know.
Right.
Uh and uh
Wow, that's perfect then.
yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. Uh First time to
But
wear the
yeah,
hat, by the way.
there were lots of things like music
Hey,
rights were a
Anthony.
real bummer when they started putting stuff out on physical media because I want to say it was The Fugitive
Yeah.
used a lot of stock stuff from one of the studio's libraries, and they couldn't. Someone would have to go through and figure out what every track was so that they could, you
Hey,
know,
Dave.
pay the rights or whatever. So they put out The Fugitive with new music, like incidental music. They like rescored the thing. If you can imagine, you're familiar with a TV show that you love, and then suddenly you
Mhm.
hear it with the wrong music. That's just terrible. And then the crazy thing, there's a guy on
Well,
YouTube I've been watching. He analyzes songs, and he can tell when they've been using auto tune.
mhm.
And he figured out that you remember the Beatles, they put out that raw version of Let It Be
Yeah.
where they didn't
Mhm.
have all the orchestrations or whatever.
Mhm.
The Long and Winding Road on that was auto-tuned. And they're doing that. Apparently, they're doing that to a lot of them when they go on to these streaming services like Spotify and stuff like that. So if you don't
Mhm.
have the original, you're getting altered versions of the songs you're used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of people apparently are buying CDs again, trying to get them so they can have the original versions of the song. Apparently, they were doing it to like Queen albums and some other ones that they're just as they release them, they just sweeten them with this digital auto tune and stuff
Hey,
like that. And
there's nothing that Queen needs to be sweetened about Queen
no,
music.
no, well, they
Nothing.
would. The claim is that younger people are used to hearing everything auto tuned, but that's just baloney.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I like the original experience. You're losing something in translation otherwise. I don't
yeah,
mind them like, Lucas kind of redid everything 10 years later and released it in the theaters, and that was they really didn't do that much, like add Jabba the Hutt in there,
yeah, I
with
think the first
early.
one was the one that they put the most into. But I don't think The Empire Strikes Back has a lot of stuff that was changed. But
Yeah, well, it was
um,
cool that, originally it was like a stand-in that Harrison was talking to that played Jabba, and,
yeah,
he was supposed to step over his tail or step on his tail, and and react to that. I mean, there's a whole thing on the
he
but
walked around the back of the guy, and they realized, well, that
yeah,
can't work because Job's got a big tail. So they actually
exactly. Yeah.
lifted him up, like he stepped over him. But yeah, the thing is, like with a song that I've listened to a million times, I can tell if it's not the version that I'm used to. Because some acts did that; they would re-record their famous hits because they could get out of their original record contract or whatever.
Mhm.
And I hated that. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear re-records of it. I want to hear the one that my brain is used to. But I was going to show you, I've been working on putting these together. The
Oh, nice. Yeah.
the little sleeve.
Viewmaster.
I have to cut them out and fold them. But I got these cool. I got these cool poly bags, which are exactly the right size.
Now, where did you get those? Online?
Yeah, I got them off Amazon, and they are
Hmm.
great. I mean, they're so great that you really have to fold them correct to get them to fit in. But it was great. I could put my old one in it. It'll
Yeah,
hold the ones with 3
yeah,
reels. And I
that's
was,
great that it just has an adhesive strip. That it's not like shrink
yeah,
wrapped around the thing.
yeah, you can open and close it. And
Mhm.
I was supposed to on a box or on a UPS truck today is my box of the ViewMaster reels, and I've got the worst UPS driver in the world. And if it's a heavy box, he just won't deliver it. But I went ahead. I ordered enough of these that I got a price break. So everybody that got one of these is getting a blue ViewMaster with it. So um, So now I have to figure out a new way to send them, because before it was just going to be this. Now it's going to be a box. But so I'm trying to figure out. They're saying the thing said that it couldn't be delivered. Now they're trying to get it to some access point, so I'm gonna have to go pick it up. But
Mhm.
I'm very excited. I'm within a week I should have the the file sent off to the replicators to get the discs made. And so getting close to finally being able to fulfill on this.
Some of the those masters, and we come with a little booklet and everything.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's just uh, I mean, on eBay, I know Elsie bought. He was on a ViewMaster kick for a while, kind of buying and then reselling off eBay with some of the ViewMasters, because some of those are worth some money. You know.
Yeah, they would come in with a little thing, and it would have the story that went
Hmm.
along with it, so you have a longer version of it. Um, and it looks like it's 2 colors. It looks like it's cyan and black. And then
Yeah.
they had, this thing is falling apart, but
Texas Dave got his spinner rack finally.
oh,
Only took
great.
like 8 months for him to get it from Diamond. Of course, Diamond's been going through some stuff.
Yeah, he's lucky he did get it. Yeah, because
Yeah,
Diamond was pretty much well, they are out of business, aren't they? Didn't they sell themselves or something?
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't kept up with it. I
Yeah, I
say
haven't
good
either.
riddance. In 40 something years or something, they never really improved on their, you know, service. It's
No.
pretty sad.
Well, that whole thing when they when Marvel went exclusive with Heroes World and destroyed the whole distribution system, that was really uh, terrible for comics. All these people saying, "Oh no, it was great because they only had one distributor." No, you only had one distributor.
Well,
That's never great.
my
That's a monopoly.
my comic experience, with my comic book shop was pre-Diamond. Actually dealt with Capital, which I think was bought out by Diamond.
They went out
But
of business. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, Capital was pretty much like Diamond. It really was. I
right.
mean, the service was like, especially for smaller stores, you would get a hot book and you couldn't get it. They didn't ship it, and you'd go back order it or what. Just like Diamond, you'd have to back order and you'd have to cross your fingers to see if you get it, especially if you're
Yeah,
a smaller comic. And I was thinking, even at the time in 82, 83, when I had my shop, uh, uh, Apple Comics probably up in New York and others on LA and things like that are larger shops. They probably don't get everything, and or they get, they give you credit for stuff you didn't get, and it was always janked up, and
yeah.
so I don't think it's really the practice has changed that much from Capital to Diamond when Diamond came in, because I
Well,
heard from my local comic book shop the same criticisms that I had for Capital.
Yeah. When the thing I remember, because I was friends with a guy who had a local comic shop. He had like a chain. He had like about 3 or 4 stores. But when we
Well, that was weird. It was 2 of me for a second.
we between the 2 of you, you could pick up enough good working parts to get.
Yeah, between the 2,
talk amongst yourselves.
Between the 2, maybe we can get one good pair of legs going.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But one of us is gonna go down for parts. That's gonna be the tough part.
Yeah,
we self-published. Yeah, we self-published our comic in 1994, and we went through both Capital City and Diamond, and because they were the 2 big ones. Okay. Yeah. So the guy I knew who had a comic shop, he did all of his stuff, I think, through Capital City. I'm almost positive it was. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, what happened was when Marvel went exclusive with Heroes World, when they bought that distributor and you could only get books from there, mm-hmm. That was the first time he had to deal with 2 distributors. And he said the biggest problem with that was you made your money off of ordering enough books to get a discount. But if you're ordering half your books from another distributor, then you're only ordering half as many books. You're not getting as big a discount. And then I do remember that Heroes World went under when Marvel went bankrupt, and there was like a split up. I think like Image and a few things were exclusive to Capital City, and DC was exclusive to Diamond. And they hung on a little bit that way. And then when Marvel chose Diamond over Capital, that was it for Capital. They couldn't hang in any longer. So that was,
from what I've heard, talking to different, and I've had comic book shop owners, from here in the Midwest all the way to Texas, and I've traveled a lot, talked to a lot of people, and they all miss the old days when Capital was around. A lot of the guys that dealt with both of them seemed to like Capital better than Diamond. So,
well, Capital actually gave us a better deal. Because I think it was normally a 60-40 thing. They would buy it for 40% of the cover price. And Capital agreed to do a 50-50 deal. So the books that we sold through Capital, we actually made more money on.
Right. Well, that's probably why most dealers like them. Yeah.
Just
profit is always good.
Anthony had dropped this, so go. Let's take a look at it. Shane Davis's Anatomic.
Yeah. And Anthony is
sign up for that.
Working on that
exclusive lenticular card with any secret tier. So let's take a look at the trailer real quick.
All right.
Only on Copy S Theater. Yes.
If fighting was a god, I would worship him. I would bow to him. I would pray for victory. For he only grants opportunities. But behind every god lurks a devil. And the devil wants me to take a dive. My name is Anatomic. And this is how my legend was made.
Nice.
This looks like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Now, we had Rick Piper on yesterday from Cross Comics, Mark, and I don't know if you caught that, but he He's working on a trailer using AI where it's actually animated. What do you think about that as an animator yourself? Of you using that as a tool to actually bring your images to life and move for the very first time?
I think it's going to be happening a lot because it's getting really good. I think I showed you guys that I was working on some for work, where I've just been doing these sort of kids education, medical education things, and I've got like a group of cartoon characters that I've been doing, and it's limited. I mean, it's not great. You can't really get what you want, but you can get something. And I think there's going to be more and more of that. I do know there's a guy who had a TV show when he was like 20 something. He sold a TV show to MTV or one of those places, and it did one season and got canceled. And he did a big Kickstarter to launch to do like a movie version that would be a wrap up for it. And he's down to the point where he's having to do everything himself. And I know he's been experimenting with doing in-betweens with AI. So he has the keyframe drawn, he has the next keyframe drawn, and then he uses the AI to draw the frames in between.
Yeah, like an in-betweener. They used to call him in-betweener. Jack Kirby was
Exactly.
an in-betweener on Popeye.
Popeye,
cartoons,
for the Fleischer Studio when they were in New York. And so I think there's a lot to it. I think if you're doing it for a trailer, why not? You're not selling an animated film, you're selling a comic. And if it can make your things move,
well, like
go for it.
Rick said, he said I had a cat that it gave 2 tails to, almost like with fingers, it might give you 6 fingers.
Yeah.
And I said, well, is there any way you could go in there and remove it? I'm sure you probably could, but it would take a process. But he was like, yeah, I didn't really care. But I mean, for that part, but it was pretty impressive just to see the Canadian Shield move and be animated in just the short little things that he had.
Right. And I think that's kind of the coolest aspect of it is if you're trying to do something where it can just be like a happy accident, like if things move and something happens, that's great. It can surprise you and make something really cool. But if you want him to like walk across the room and open a doorknob, it's almost impossible to get it to do it. So it's great for things where
you'd have to probably have most of it, in stages, and then it would, like you say, do the fill-in work, but it would be a sequence, a benign.
Well, a bunch of my avatars that I use on my show plus Rex's, I like to change it up every now and again. I generated like 5 of them off of AI, just playing around with it. But the weird thing with AI is you got to figure out how to give it just the right prompt to get what you want, because it doesn't give you exactly what you want like the first time.
Well, you like this icon you did through AI, right?
Yeah, I did this one. Yeah. And then my 12 o'clock shadow or 12 o'clock the high noon show on Saturday. Both of the cowboy Shadowhawks, I generated those on AI.
Yeah,
and they look great.
Let me see if I can. It'll be on Choppy Ass Theater, so it'll be.
That's all right.
Maybe I should have said Viewmaster.
When Rex finally upgrades his computer, I guarantee you, people are going to be like, "I miss Choppy Ass Theater."
Oh yeah, I guarantee you.
I don't think anybody's going to miss Choppy Ass Theater.
And Hale Belmont, what's going on, buddy? Pencils down. Looking forward to getting my book. Yeah, baby. I think I bought it back them a few times.
I'm going to drop
I've got to back him next week before he takes it down.
Yeah, I dropped
is it still in demand?
I think it is over on FOMO Comic.
Oh, okay, cool.
I just dropped a link in the private chat, Rex.
Okay, that was you.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go to that, this is one
somebody was trying to come in.
It was one of those education videos that I did.
Can we play it? Can we play it? Yeah. Oh, okay. Just a moment, then. Let me key it up here.
Mark's not going to strike us.
No, I'm going to strike you in.
Well,
And
He's like, sucker.
to that, all I say is, strike me down and I shall rise.
I shall come back more powerful than you've ever seen.
That's right. That's right. Okay. What was this? I don't even know. Okay.
that was Anatomic.
Westworld.
Okay, so let's take that down. Let's see. Present. And there we go. So many screens, so much time to lose.
Oh, they make you jump through so many hoops now just to show something. It's freaking.
Yeah.
It used to be
I
simple.
know it. Dance
we're going to
monkey
charge you
dance.
more money, and we're going to make it more difficult to use.
Oh, look, it's Cyberfrog when a kid.
Makes your body grow stronger muscle, stronger bone. Get into the playing zone. When you're running, your heart beats fast. Getting healthy, it's a blast. And something else your play will do. Playing makes your brain grow too. Better thinking, hold the phone. Get into the playing zone. Jump and
Sparky the Super Cat.
Who knew Cyberfrog needed glasses?
That long necked bear thing almost looks like the thing on Ice Age.
He's a ferret.
He's a
ferret.
ferret?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
Like,
he was maybe a weasel or,
Yeah, kind of like that.
I mean, it's all
The
the same
ferret's
thing.
almost a weasel. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the guy that stands in the alley, the
Otters.
dark alley with
They're all
dice.
I think otters, ferrets, weasels, they're all the same family.
But I've been able to figure out how to keep them looking the same. So, the great thing is I can do that in a short amount of time.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, then she comes by here all the time.
Carrie wants to know what we were watching.
There's a green one in the river.
So those are I've been doing a series of educational videos that run in like pediatricians' offices. So they're for little kids.
That was one of yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So, and I've been doing them with AI, and what I do is I write lyrics for the song, and then I go to this website Suno AI, and I can generate. It will actually come up with a tune and sing and play the instruments, and you get a song from your lyrics. And you go through. I usually have to do it about 6 times before I get one that I like. Then I go through and I generate the images to do the different shots I need, and take those into Runway, and I'll get animations for each of the shots.
Now, what is Runway?
So Runway is a AI website for generating and video.
Oh, so it's like an animation or movement and all that.
Yeah. So, and you can do it. You can just do a text prompt, like you say, I want to see a guy running down the street or something like that. Or you can give them an image and say, start from this image, and do the thing that you do. So what I do is I generate images for the things, and what I mostly do is if there's anything like 2 tails or something like that, I go into Photoshop and I clean them up so that I start with an image that is right.
And 6 fingers. Apparently, they like to add fingers in AI.
Yeah, that's one of the things. There's some minor things I've found with new ChatGPT that their image generator is really good, because what you're doing is ChatGPT is actually giving the prompt to an image generator. So when you ask ChatGPT for something, it remembers what it looks like, and so it prompts it, and you end up with. I can start a thing with the characters, and if I say now I want to see the characters doing this, it's the same characters. It has some problems with scale, knowing which one's taller than the other.
Right.
There's some issues that you run into. But for the most part, I've been able to take these same 5 characters, and I've been doing different little videos. I've written six songs now with this thing,
Oh
and
shit!
they're like little jingles, and it's a lot of fun.
You think they'll ever have a reward, for AI? You think they'll ever have something like the Oscars for best of type,
Possibly. If you guys remember,
in the
the
future?
last time I was here, I was about to go to Atlanta for an AI film festival,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How'd that work out?
and it was fun. There were about 5 other, or maybe I was one of 5 filmmakers that were there with AI shorts, and we had a little panel and discussed them. I did not win anything.
Did you like the traffic?
It was not that. Oh, I got a hotel very close by and just took an Uber back and forth.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it got nominated for most innovative use of AI, and it was runner up for the audience favorite. So
Awesome. Well, that's
yeah, so it
that's
was,
something,
and that was the one where I came up with the idea for it on a Friday, finished it on a Saturday, and then 2 weeks later, I was at the film festival. So that was
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, you told us
insane.
about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was just this insane thing. Hey, Apex.
Hey,
Okay.
Apex in the chat. Good to see you, buddy.
So
no, no.
yeah, I
Prayers
do
for
think
Mom, and looking
they're-
forward to reading the pencils down, brother.
yeah, there already are AI film festivals, and people are making now. Of course, the ones who were winning the awards were doing the ones that were real political.
So they really do have a rewards already for this AI stuff. Wow.
Yeah, there are.
Animation is insane to me to get. I mean, it's a bit of magic, really. I mean, 24 frames per second, and you got to do all those in between shots. It's amazing. Thousands of, like Snow White, the first hour-long animated movie. What in your estimation, and to me, I think probably the pinnacle of the traditional 24 frames done by hand and all that's probably kind of like Jungle Book or something like that, which was the last thing Disney worked on. In your opinion, what is the greatest Disney movie of all time when it comes to animation, you think?
I think of the original ones, I'm a real big fan of Pinocchio, because I think Pinocchio was still done, because like Jungle Book was much looser. By that time, they'd already figured out how to do. They had Xerox machines, so they could take their pencils.
Okay, it was
they could
fluid,
take yeah, they could take the pencils, they could put them on cells and paint those. They didn't have to have, the lines painted.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the Jungle Book a lot, but I think when I look at the craft of Pinocchio, I'm amazed at how amazing. And then I guess, I don't know, it's hard to say for the sort of the Renaissance, the Disney Renaissance things. I remember loving The Lion King, but I haven't watched it in a long time.
See, I asked Elsie that
Well,
too,
dude,
and he
here's
said
one for you.
The Lion King as well.
I had a bunch of the old Disney soundtracks for the movie.
Oh, okay.
But they were like a kind of like a Golden Book edition type thing where it had narration, and then you would get the song, right? Yeah. But they were on 8-track tapes, dude. It was before VHS. It was good. I had them when I was a kid. And I used to listen the shit out of those things. They're Aristocrats.
So I had Pete's Dragon,
Jungle Book. Oh, Pete's Dragon's a good one.
And I had actually taped the Pete's Dragon record onto an 8-track, and that was how I listened to it.
Oh no shit!
When I was a kid, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because you would have a little bit of story, and then they'd play part of the song.
I didn't even know how you recorded shit onto an 8-track, so you were like miles ahead of me already.
It was basically the same thing as a cassette tape. You put it in.
You just plug it in.
It was like a stereo that had a record player, radio, and the 8-track.
And an 8-track player.
So you could record off the radio too.
Yeah. We're in the Midwest, so I grew up with a big, like 3/4 of the house basement, right? My dad had his den down there with a bar and all that shit, and this stereo setup that was probably, I don't know, 20 inches tall, but about 8
Was your
feet
dad
wide.
was your dad in the military?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
he-
the military guys could go overseas and they could get these direct from, you know, Japan or Korea or wherever they'd make these giant stereo systems.
Dude,
And they could
I
they
don't
could
I
get
don't
them
know
for
where,
nothing and bring them back.
but this thing mounted on the wall. The whole unit. It wasn't just the speakers. It had a record player, an 8-track. They didn't have cassettes yet when it was built,
Yeah.
so it was just
My
a record
dad had
player,
my dad had a reel-to-reel
AM/FM
player.
stereo, and it had some big ass speakers on it, dude. When my dad was having a party down in the basement, you didn't get no sleep. You know, you had to stay in your room so you didn't get in trouble. But you didn't.
Yeah, I grew up a military brat, and you'd go over to these guys' houses, and they had the most amazing stuff. The first, and it wasn't even when they first came out, but the first time I ever saw a video cassette recorder was probably like about 78 or 79.
Wow,
And
really?
I just went over to this guy's house, and he said, "Watch this," and he rewound a commercial. And I was like, "How the hell did you do that?" I didn't say hell; I was a little kid, but I was like, "You blew
Right.
my mind that you could take TV and back it up and watch it again."
I know.
never
Yeah,
thought
that shit was crazy.
possible. And like, I don't think we got a VCR until like probably 85 or 86. We were still renting them from the video store when we watched movies.
Well,
But
even as the VCRs kind of evolved and got a little bit better, then you could do like the frame by frame progression and stuff. Oh, dude, watching horror movies and special effects, I would just stop it, back it up.
Oh,
move it
yeah.
forward. You know, I mean, I wore shit out doing that.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I borrowed my cassette recorder from my brother, and I would take Mork and Mindy, you know, and put the mic right up there close to the TV and would record because I loved his improv. It had me
Yeah.
rolling. But the bad thing is you would hear people walking through the house or speaking, and it's like, shh, this is a recording
Yeah.
studio. Quit it, you know.
I did have a tape of TV themes because I would do the same thing. I'd hold it up. It didn't have
Right,
a
yeah.
microphone though. I'd hold the whole thing up to the television and get
Well, dude,
the theme songs.
I used to make recordings and like use stuff off the radio, right? So I would do like a DJ impression, you know, like an
Oh, okay.
8-year-old kid going, "Hey, welcome to whatever radio," and make some stupid joke, and then I would do the hold your microphone up to the radio and wait for like the certain song I was waiting for. I gotta hear it, you know, like finally get a little, you know, clip of it. It was especially the chorus or whatever, you know, like the one I remember the most, and I don't know how many of these things I made, but it was when Jaws came out, and was that 77, 78?
75.
75.
Was it 75? That's right,
Yeah,
it was before
75.
Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his 50th anniversary this year.
Yeah, so I was 8 when I was doing this then. And it was like there was I don't know if you remember or not, on Dr. Demento, they'd have this weird little it would be like the crazy reporter, like from the Hindenburg or something, going,
yeah.
and asking questions real quick. And I just remember one of them was like, Mr. Jaws, oh, blah blah blah. What do you say to that? And caught it on the radio. Got, why can't we be friends?
Right. Yeah, you would take clips. Yeah, I do remember those. You did a few of those.
I used to put little shit like that together. I've still got a couple of them.
One was like an alien, and it was like they played the Purple People Eater and stuff.
But
it was always he'd ask them a question, and then he'd play a clip from the song as the end. Yeah, I do remember those.
Yeah, it was that shit was funny. So I would do like that kind of stuff, you know, just goofing around. Apparently at around 8 years old.
Apex. I lived in southern Florida in 1975. My mom wasn't taking me anywhere close to Jaws.
I remember.
We went to the beach on a regular basis. There was no way my mom was letting me see.
Really,
Star Wars.
we were living through history with Star Wars. I've mentioned it before because in some theaters it ran for 2 years, year and a half in a bunch. I think it ran for about a year and a half here in Jonesboro, and still had lines, and it petered out after a while for the new stuff coming in. But I remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind came in while Star Wars was still playing. So you had kind of two very different space experiences,
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah, I saw Star Wars in the first run, and then I saw it the next year when they had like the re-release. Rex was 29 years old when the first Victrola came out.
Yeah.
He thought it was the
I was
bee's knees.
not. I was 28. Don't age me out, Eric.
I was 10. I remember going. My dad wouldn't take me though until the lines slowed down at our theater, and I don't know how much money this theater paid or whatever, but they had Star Wars running for. It had to have been at least 8 months. And
so I was 9 in 1977, and my strongest memory was when the thing was over. I just turned to my dad and I said, the ships were going fast, because I had never seen anything with spaceships going fast like that. Star Trek, it was real slow. Even old Flash Gordon things, they just bzzz, they just
kind of
I mentioned yesterday again, when the Millennium Falcon went into hyperspace, the audience went, ooh, because we'd never seen that before. Yeah. Now we don't think a thing about it, but I mean, really, we were living through history with the streaming services and everything now. There's never going to be a movie that lasts for a year and a half, 2 years in some theaters. And
I was laughing. I just saw on Disney Plus, Snow White is already on Disney Plus.
Why do I feel like, Mark, that you're regressing and you're going to start singing Rubber Ducky, you're the one. You make my time so much fun. Great icon, by the way.
Yeah, actually, that's another AI one. And what I've been doing is I can there's an AI site where I can load up my voice, and it will lip sync to my voice. So for these making of documentaries that I've been making for the DVDs, when I cut to me as a clip, it's this puppet of me talking.
Oh, that's wild, dude.
Apex Comics says, I remember the newspaper would say Star Wars held over for 108 weeks. Yeah. I mean, I went to see it in its 33rd week of showing in Jonesboro. It took me that long to convince my mother to take me.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I wish I knew how long. I don't remember.
Weekend that summer. I mean, it was wintertime before he finally took me, because my dad was cop, and he had connections everywhere, right? And
I definitely saw it in the summer, but I'm sure I did. Yeah. I'm sure it was probably later.
Thank you for that, Justin. Justin Belmont says, for Pencils Down, Eric, Apex, Rex, Omer, and Shadowhawk, you'll all be listed on the thank you page in Pencils Down.
Oh, that's awesome, Justin. Thank you, brother. Hey, Belmont Press.
Yeah, I believe Pencils Down is still available. Justin, do me a favor and drop the link to Fund My Comic, or any of the links where people can go get
Creston and Double Flyer on page 1. Yes.
Yeah. Who's Creston? Is that from AR Ariel 13 or whatever? Who's Creston?
Do you know what's Belmont's channel?
No. I've got to be honest. No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you, Justin.
Well, they've taken a hiatus, but when Belmont and Good Stuff were doing the show together, the Creston was a character on.
I saw that at my local comic book shop as well. Those things
a new release.
Yeah, it's foil covered. So I've been getting a bunch of these.
And they're about $15, right? They're about $15.
$16.99, and actually I've been
$16.99.
getting.
Yeah.
I've been
Don't tell
getting
me
them on
this shit. I
eBay,
gotta
so
start
more.
buying DC again. Damn it.
Superman and Shazam,
Oh,
Batman,
oh
the
look at
villain
it.
ones.
Oh.
This one's wild. They have white ink on it because it's for the foil.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got an original.
Oh,
of that.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Ra's
Yeah.
al Ghul
I've
one.
actually been passing these up, but you've been buying them
Dude,
up.
I didn't
Okay.
know they did a supersized Ra's al Ghul
Yeah.
or whatever. They,
Oh, it's a great.
Well, you know, I go to my
Neil
local
Adams
comic
cover.
book shop, Mark, and most of it is
nice Batman.
this retro reprint stuff because that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
keeping them in
Well,
business somewhat.
It gets me.
People-
I'm a sucker for the old stuff. And again on
I want
Amazon,
them now.
I found bags for the Treasury editions.
Oh
Get
yeah, you can
out.
find. But now, I think you can even get boards, maybe.
Can you?
although they're
Yeah,
not-
yeah. Some of the ones that I've gotten through eBay do have the boards on them.
Mm.
Yeah, I love this. I wanted this so bad when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, I've got that. I've got the original one, but I want that foil cover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've been getting them all with the foil cover because then it's kind of different.
That's cool.
And they're printed on the insides are printed. It's a nicer version of newsprint, but it is
Yeah.
newsprint, so it doesn't have that
It's
color
like
like the reprints.
It's like what the
Mhm.
Alterna books are using. It doesn't have the
Yeah.
pinos at the bottom. Of course,
Mhm.
those treasuries
Yeah.
never had the pinos, I don't think. But
No, I don't think they did.
oh, look at that! Yeah. I
That's
mean,
so
that
awesome,
makes.
yeah.
I mean, with that wider paper, even though it's still a better quality newsprint, it makes the colors pop more than the original.
Yeah.
ever did.
Oh,
But
yeah.
they don't look garish like those reprint. Like I've been getting those Omnipedias, not a lot of them, but I've gotten a few of them, and
Well, you know,
it's almost hard to read because they look so terrible.
Back in the
glossy
mid '90s, they did these ones and maybe gave them gold metallic covers, but
Yeah.
they downsized the Treasury editions. They did reprint a couple of those, and I have them in my collection. And if I ever come across them, I'll show them. But
Okay.
I never knew
that's
those
cool.
ever came out in the mid '90s.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah.
And they
I-
are expensive because people want them. You know, even
Yeah,
though they're reprint.
I just found out about these a few months ago, so I've been kind of backtracking and getting some of them. But
Dude,
yeah,
you got a nice bunch already.
yeah, I've gotten 8 of them. I may have gotten all the ones that have come out so far.
Oh, wow. Cool.
The most recent one was the Superman Shazam, but the wild one, I think I'd shown you before, is this Untold Legend of the Batman. This
Yeah.
was not a Treasury edition originally; it was a miniseries.
Yeah, Garcia
Ah.
Lopez cover.
Damn.
Yeah, but they turned
That's
it
the first
into
Garcia
a,
Lopez? Really? Holy shit.
Yeah, Byrne did the first issue, I think, because he was. I was reading about it.
Now that book
Byrne-
was in like novel size, wasn't it?
No,
Or they
I
did a
think it was-
novel.
I-
They did a novel.
They may have
size of
done
that.
one. Yeah, they may have.
Yeah.
Originally, it was a mini series, but
Okay,
Byrne was like on a hiatus and wanted to do Batman, so they hired him to do it, and then they dicked around and didn't get him the scripts. So he got one done, and he was like, "Look, if you guys don't get me the scripts, my window is about to end." And so it did. So he didn't do the rest of the series. But there was, because I was reading about it on Wikipedia, they said that Jim Shooter actually called John Byrne up when he found out about it and says, "I'll pay you to do a Batman story that we'll never be able to put out if you agree not to do the book for DC," because he didn't want him doing anything for DC. But
Oh, I believe it.
that was Byrne's one big chance at the time, and they screwed him over.
Yeah.
Justin Belmont says I had Neil Adams draw Muhammad Ali on my soups jam. He said something weird to me when I asked him for the commission. Neil was like, "He's black, you know." Yeah. Fun times
makes-
with Neil Adams.
All right. Then. The hell? Yeah, I
Just pull this
I
out
had
now.
noticed.
Did you see I did a late night draw stream with several individuals? We had
No,
awesome viewership on that. 231 views so far. So thanks everybody who tuned into our late night draw stream that ended early this morning. Actually, if we would have went a couple more hours, I'm sure we might have even doubled those numbers. But people watched for almost 15 minutes. It was at the end of it, we had like 219 views on it. So thanks
Wow.
everyone who tuned in and checked that out.
Yeah, this was the cover that
Yeah,
Byrne
that's
did.
Garcia Lopez cover, isn't it?
Is it? Isn't it not Byrne? I guess not.
Well,
that
I
was
mean,
the-
you know,
you only did the
Garcia
one.
Lopez inking. you know.
Yeah. And then I think this is what you were talking about. I think this is when they collected it as a digest.
Yeah, it's like a little digest. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little novelette or something. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's got to be a pretty expensive process to do full covers that big. You know, it's amazing that they're coming out with that stuff. But when I go to when I go to my comic shop, it just seems like you're getting Disney variant covers, and now they're doing like what if Mickey's crew or whatever is the Avengers, is the Fantastic Four or something. I bought a few of them, but you know, it just seems like all reprint stuff. And when Dan DiDio, before he left and was in charge of DC, he was kind of myth that the dollar books, the reprints, was outselling the new stories and new things that he was doing. You know,
Well,
by and large, they're better artists and they're not woke, and they're books that people want. Apex says if John Byrne and Marvel can come up with an agreement to publish all 31 issues of X-Men and Elsewind, I would
that's pay a
never
small
gonna
fortune for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that, but I don't think they're ever going to do that. You know,
I downloaded a bunch of them and I read through a big clip, but it's just so hard to read on my computer. I'd rather have it as a print book that I can just flip through. But I don't know. Have you seen those?
If they would just,
you know,
with Dan DiDio there and Costata in charge, I think over there at Marvel, they had an outing, and we've never gotten. It's been well over a decade since we've gotten Marvel DC crossover or anything. All they got to do is like do some crossovers, and people would love that. You know, if you put top-notch writers and artists on it.
I think that's coming because I know they put out 2 omnipedias of the crossovers.
Mm-hmm.
So
they may have gotten over their differences now that Costata's not there, and
and Dan DiDio's not there either.
And Dan DiDio's not there. Yeah, so maybe we'll get some more crossovers. I think that's always a cash grab, but it's cool. Fans want to see Batman go up against Captain America or something. You know, they want to see a mashup type stuff.
Yeah, it's an event thing, but I don't know. From my point of view, there was a period when I was reading comics and I loved them, but trying to step into any of these books now is it's just impossible. There's so much history that's come along to rewrite everything that's been done. Plus, I would have hated as if I didn't like it when Crisis did it, and that was near the end of my collecting. I didn't like it when they revamped the whole thing and rebooted the things. I wanted the history to still be there. Yeah,
exactly. I think they get too convoluted with it, Mark, where you just can't keep up with it, you know. And then you have these massive. I mean, that's why Shadowhawk got out of comics. because all these massive crossovers and stuff, it's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and they're not, and you buy them, and really you're not getting that great quality stuff. It all seemed to rush.
Yeah, and it was a editorial stunt. It wasn't that there was a real story. It was like
Mm.
the editors
Well,
would, "Okay, you've got to tie your book into our big crossover thing some way." So somebody would mention, "Oh, the Beyonder was somewhere." And going, that's
Well,
not
yeah,
a crossover. Yeah.
No,
and
no.
and for completists or whatever, they would put like, part 7 in one of the bottom tier books that didn't sell
Yeah.
shit, right? They all of a sudden, oh, they're involved, and it would be
Yeah.
just horrible, stupid shit. I hated it, and I finally just got sick of it. I'm like, I'm tired of, I don't
And
want to buy
DC
12
was the
titles
worst.
because I don't need one.
I think the Guinness Book of World Records, and I'm just throwing it in there so that you'll better understand what I'm saying. The No Man's Land with Batman. That's the longest running crossover type story that ran for years, apparently, in the 90s.
Okay.
How can you keep track of that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really hated when Crisis
I
happened.
might have to pop out
I
of
love-
it, so I'm starting to echo.
Okay, I'll make sure I
I-
let you back in.
I loved reading Crisis on Infinite Earths, but then I hated that Batman came back and it was a different book. And,
They could have
Jason
fixed
Todd
things
had
at that point.
Yeah, Jason Todd had come in as one character, but then after Crisis, he was like this punk kid who was trying to take the hubcaps off the Batmobile.
Yeah,
and it was like,
Batmobile.
so he was a completely different character. And I was like, I tried to stick with it for a while. I read the Superman books, which Byrne had revamped for a while. But eventually I was just like, you know what? It doesn't have the connection to what I remember. I just didn't go for it. And then, I wasn't reading them when they did like New 52 and Rebirth and all these things. And I just kept thinking,
Yeah.
how can you stay attached to a book if they're going to relaunch it and everything starts over again?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, writers had taken different titles in so many different directions. In fact, Crisis introduced me to characters that I'd never seen before, like Anthro.
Oh yeah.
And, I never knew Anthro because that was back in the 60s and it had a very short run, which is kind of ironic because now I've got a lot of the production artwork to the covers, to that short run in my collection. But I had never heard of characters like Anthro. So actually the Infinite Crisis and maybe the Metal Men and other obscure things, Metamorpho, I don't know. And they threw everybody against the wall and it was George Perez. So he pretty much got me into comics doing his Avengers stuff for Marvel. When he switched over to DC doing New Teen Titans and other stuff, I followed him, and bought more DC at that time. So, he was always a favorite artist, no matter what company he was doing. And then, later you do like Crimson Dawn, I think or Crimson something, he did his own thing and I would buy that too. But if you want, there wasn't any better artists to do Crisis, I don't think, because he liked
drawing 700 people.
Yeah, right. And most artists are like, no.
Yeah, that's well, and I remember I saw him at a convention somewhere or something, and he said that he had a book where he makes sure that every face is different. So he'll draw the faces of all the characters, and he has like a book of that, so he can go to them and they have this nose and this shaped mouth and that kind of stuff, so that he wasn't just drawing the same guy over and over again.
I think that's smart. I mean, you need to have distinctive characters and model sheets. I and Omer were talking about that last night about a certain artist that tends to project and draw himself in that same face on different characters, and it takes some skill. I mean, I don't think John Byrne did. Speaking of John Byrne, I don't think John Byrne did children very well. Now, Nick Hardy did. He did children very well
Yeah.
on covers and stuff, you know. But I mean, to draw children is a little bit different, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't think John Byrne ever really mastered children faces, you know.
No. No.
That's
He,
that was kind of his weak point. If I would say, if somebody asked me, and there wasn't much to slam John Byrne because he's one of my favorites of all time, you know.
yeah. No. No. Byrne
If he had one
was
weakness that
amazing.
I had to think of, say something about John Byrne you don't like, it would probably be I don't like how he draws children. You know, it's kind of
Well,
weird.
and people used to say too that Byrne's women weren't that attractive.
Oh God, how about Storm and X-Men? Really? Come
Yeah,
on.
I mean, he could draw attractive women, but yeah, he did draw a lot of skinny women, so maybe that was the But no, Byrne was. It's still astonishing, even with that Elswin. Byrne just sat around and decided, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and he drew 31 issues before he got tired of it. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, I mean, he had a passion. He had an itch that he had to scratch. You know, he wanted to do more X-Men. I think he picked it up right after the Neil Adams run, right? So I think that's brilliant. You know what?
No, he continued with his version of it.
Well,
So
I mean,
he
his
pretended
version,
that
but I
it
mean,
did.
he kind of
He
picked it up.
pretended that it never. He pretended that it never went to back to Dave Cockrum. He continued it from his last.
Okay, I'd heard that he
Because he
kind of
wanted
picked
to.
it up
No, he had
from
Kitty
Neil
Pryde and
Adams.
stuff. No, he had Kitty Pryde and stuff. He had wanted to do a big Sentinel story, and Chris Claremont didn't, and they got into a big argument, and Byrne left the book over it. So he did his Sentinel story, and then he very quickly threw in the Fantastic Four, the Avengers. He was putting They went to the Savage Land. There was
A
all
lot of
kinds
times
of
he
stuff.
did. I forget who it is on X, but he kind of covers all John Byrne stuff, and you know, in 1 month time, he might do 4 books. He did that multiple times, which is
Yeah, he had.
amazing, and the
Yeah, he
quality
would
was there
do.
too.
Right.
He was
Yeah, he
he
could
was still
draw
doing full
fast.
pencils and all like that. You know, after a while, there toward the end of his run on X-Men, he started inking in his own stuff because it's kind of quicker, you know. And I think it lost something, you know.
Yeah.
It was more shorthand Burn
Right.
after that.
Well, and the Elswin is just pencils. The lettering has been put on digitally, but he did not ink them. They're not colored. It's just his pencils. So you can see all of his perspective lines and stuff like that. But yeah, you could tell he was having a blast. And it's all set back in that 80s period. But I never did go back and finish it because it was kind of a pain because you had to download like each page because it was on like his forums. So you'd have to like go through and find where he posted a page, and you'd have to collect them all together. I know some people have put out bootleg books of them, but I have no idea how you get them, and I've never come across one.
Yeah, I guess you just print them out and whatnot, and you know, staple it into a book form.
Well, I think these are people who maybe had access to like a printer or something, you know, a print shop or something, and they could just, you know, they could print out these bootleg versions of it.
I think, you know, I think one thing, you know, when DC canceled a lot of their 1978 titles, one thing DC could do is like they already had some books completed, or if they're not completed, then get Garcia Lopez or somebody to ink them, whatever the stories, because he's still alive. He's in his 70s, I think. But you know, you could get some artists from that time, or maybe even modern artists if not everything's done. But those, like the Commandy issues, the Firestorm issues, the titles that were canceled, some had up to 3 completed issues that never were released. They need to kind of release those retro, and collectors would want to add that to their collection, I think.
Oh yeah, here's a link to.
They did give copies. I do have those in copy form. They did 2 comics cavalcade, they called them, issue 1 and issue 2, but they were only like those issues that were canceled that came out. that never were released, and they were given out to employees at the time.
Okay.
But that I don't know if they've got the artwork scanned to the point where they could reproduce that. But I think collectors would like that,
Yeah, I mean,
especially
if
if they did like special full editions of it or something.
yeah, I mean, if they still have the original art, they could just scan it. So I put a link into an eBay listing for the John Byrne Elswin. So the 5 trade paperbacks were $440. So I don't think I'll be getting them anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, I think the market for books, comic books, and just any kind of book right now, the book market's kind of soft right now. I think it will be maybe for a couple years. What do you think? Till the economy kind of picks up.
I'm amazed that people are still buying them, because I don't think young people are interested in physical books at all.
Yeah. Why?
I just
Why? It
don't.
seems like they're after the pandemic that people are going back and the retro and collecting vinyl and
I think
going back to some of
vinyl. Yeah, I think vinyl is one of those kind of obnoxious hobbies where
well, a lot of people say the quality is better than digital.
So there's definitely a different sound. I've been buying some vinyl, but I don't have a $9,000 record player with a diamond needle that and perfect. And plus, my hearing isn't great either. But they're way more expensive than they used to be, man. But you can tell the weight of them is much greater. Because remember, at the end, when you would buy a new vinyl record, you could do it would flop all over the place. And I was always having to put the nickel on my thing to hold the needle in place because it'd skip around. Because they really got cheap.
Manga books. I mean, you got to give it to that. They are reading manga. I mean, that's the
Now they are buying those.
That's the bulk of what's selling right now, in Barnes and Noble and other places, they're outselling everything. Scholastic books, I think, is outselling everybody. I know I bought some and ordered through Scholastic when I was in grade school and everything. That was some of the first books I read and some of the first comic material, like Dynamite magazine would have little reprints. The very early ones would have like Fantastic Four #1 or some Marvel book. What's this we're looking at on vinyl?
So this was the soundtrack to season 3 of Picard. I got because the composer for my movie worked on it, and it's a double album set. And the other thing I've noticed though is not only are the records, much better quality and weight and stuff. Almost all of them are colors.
I like the marbleized look. That's cool.
Yeah. And I bought another one recently, and it was like gold or whatever. But I remember as a kid, and I didn't know this until the last few years, when they originally put out 45s, I think it was RCA. They were colored based on what genre they were. So, if it was
jazz or country?
Yeah. They were a different color vinyl, and they were that see-through vinyl, which I always just thought was so cool.
Was that because DJs could grab them and know what they're grabbing just by color coding?
Possibly. I'm not sure what the motivation was. It may just been the fact that you see RCA. Original 45s colors. So black was used for contemporary pop, green for country and western, red for classical, yellow for children's music, orange for rhythm and blues, and light blue for international music, and deep blue for Broadway and operettas. Wow. And so every once in a while, I would come across somebody who had one of these old colored, 45s, and I would go, wow, those look really cool.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been funny if black hadn't been the one that took off, if they if they were always blue or something like that. But yeah, that was the original idea for 45s, was that they were categorized by color. Um,
That's interesting. I wonder if, like I said, maybe DJs could know exactly what they're. Of course, I don't know.
yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a reason why they were done that way.
And that was probably back in the 50s, wasn't it? 40s, 50s, or maybe even
yeah,
earlier.
it sounds like maybe in heavy promote arches, so compact, inexpensive. Doesn't say, but I think maybe it was about 1948, 1949, somewhere in there. They said that the Yellow Seal and Red Seal records held on until about 1952.
I
The
guess you
first,
heard that Brian Wilson passed away the other
I
day.
did. I hate that man. He was talented dude.
Yeah, I think he was dealing with health problems for quite a while. So
Yeah, that's bad. Well, he from, I don't know if it was from the drugs or if he had a stroke or what, but for a while when he was still relatively active, he talked funny. He could still kind of sing,
mhm.
but his mouth was kind of on one side, and he would kind of talk. There was something was going on there, and I always wondered if it was just a stroke or maybe the drugs or something, because there was a long period of time where he was really messed up.
Have you ever seen one of these retro soap dishes, Mark?
Not that
You
particular one, but I do remember there being,
really?
like
I
the
think we had
Venus
one of those
thing with the
back in the
half shell.
70s. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
A bar of soap would kind of be hard to get out of that mouth, really. I mean, but yeah, the ceramic frogs were. We had
My
one of
mom
those, I think.
was huge into ceramics in the 70s. I think she would take like classes, and they would go and they pour them in the molds. And my mom even had a kiln for a while where she could bake them, and then they would paint them and put whatever the gloss was on them. I remember her making a Darth Vader and Chewbacca mug for me when I was young. I wonder whatever happened. They probably got destroyed at some point.
I love Dynamite. They really, some of the first comic book little things was in Dynamite, and would order that through Scholastic, and
Yeah.
uh,
I don't think I ever actually had a physical copy one. I just always saw it being
I've got a large
advertised in the
collection because I
Scholastic store.
subscribed to it for years, and then
Ah,
sometime in the early 80s when I was getting older, it's like, yeah, let's don't renew it. I probably should have kept on because that's a really slice of Americana, and there are some Star Wars covers in there,
now,
just anything that was going on TV, Dukes of Hazzard.
yeah.
I've
Am
got
I
a big
right?
stack of them.
Did Jeanette Kahn start off at Dynamite? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Well, I probably am crazy, but I want to say
Shadowhawk.
that yeah. Kahn, after graduating from college, she founded 3 magazines for young people. The original publication, Kids, its subject matter included drug abuse, diversity, and animal protection and environment. Kahn's second magazine was Dynamite for Scholastic Inc. So she went on to be president of DC Comics, and she really was the one who brought in people getting royalties and stuff like that. She also spent the money to lure everyone from Marvel over to DC. But she started out. She started Dynamite magazine.
Well, I like Dynamite magazine for a number of reasons. I thought it was a great magazine in the 70s, 80s, whatever. I mean, for kids.
That's all I remember.
The way I got plugged into it was my brother would order stuff from Scholastic, and I go, "That's cool, I want that," and I
Yeah.
actually have like 2 copies of some of the early ones, because I kind of stole his as well, even if I had a copy.
Yeah, I just remember them from elementary school when you would get those little catalog things that they would pass out, and you could look through all the different. They had a little checkbox you could check which
Well,
ones
they
you wanted.
they had a couple like that through Scholastic too. Smash magazine that didn't last very long, and Banana, and there was
Okay.
Pizzazz. You remember Pizzazz maybe from Marvel, although
Yeah.
you're a little bit younger.
Did you say Smash?
Smash magazine, uh-huh.
Yeah, that was Jeanette Kahn's third magazine before she went to DC Comics. When she went to DC Comics, she was only 28 years old.
Well, see,
When she
now the
became
difference between the very early Dynamites, and I'm talking the first 10 dozen issues or whatever, did Marvel reprints of like Fantastic Four #1, just little parts of it, or and then Smash magazine had the DC, like when
that was
Superboy,
her connection, man.
and Lex Luthor, when Lex Luthor lost his hair.
Okay.
There was a fire break out in Lex Luthor's little laboratory, and he used his super breath to blow it out. Well, the fumes caused his hair to fall out. That was
I do remember that. Yeah,
yeah.
And that was the beginning of their super rivalry.
So even before I was reading comics, I was getting stuff like that and Dynamite and Smash and Banana and things like that.
Yeah. But imagine, so she works on these magazines in her 20s. She's 28 years old when she becomes the publisher of DC Comics in 1976. So
and that's basically the year I really took off in comics and started collecting, was 76.
Yeah. It wasn't until 1981 that she became president. After the retirement of Saul Harrison.
Well, after I don't know about, like I said, Smash didn't last that long. I'm not sure that Banana lasted that long, but Dynamite ran a long time because I subscribed to it for a while. After I liked anything superhero, and they stopped running probably for licensing problems. They didn't want to pay Marvel for reprinting, a few pages from their books or something. That was just something they kind of started off with in a comic section.
Yeah.
They eventually came up with this boy girl that had superpowers, and ran that for a little while. And then they totally did away with sort of the comic book part of it, altogether, which I kind of hated because I really like that. I think maybe they had rings. I can't remember, the rings kind of empowered them, and they were had capes, kind of like Superman type thing, but they made up their own characters for the comic book section.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I don't think they've ever compiled that into a book. I might be mistaken, but it's kind of like on Captain Kangaroo. They had the Adventures of Captain Nemo. Now they have released those on disc, and I do have some of those.
Okay.
It was kind of like the cartoon section in Captain Kangaroo.
Yeah, I loved Captain Kangaroo.
They even had some live action kind of drama sections on Captain Kangaroo growing up.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot about it. I was really little when I watched that, but I do remember I preferred Captain Kangaroo to Mr. Rogers because I thought Mr. Rogers talked down to me.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I'm first generation Sesame Street, 1969, and first generation Mr. Rogers, and I'm not sure when he started. About 69, maybe 68.
Yeah, I'm not sure when he
was
started.
around
I
the
do
time.
know.
Then I watched it on PBS, of course.
Right. I was born in 68, but
I was born a poor black child.
I knew that about
some of you will get that. That's the jerk. Steve.
But we went overseas for 4 years to Germany. So I didn't come back to the US until 73. So that was when I first saw Sesame Street and that stuff, because they didn't have it on Armed Forces television. But I was looking to see if they have anything about who those superheroes who maybe did them in Dynamite. I was looking at the Wikipedia page.
Apex, I was thinking that the Rex X and Apex show was tomorrow. Am I mistaken? You're saying the 21st. I thought it was going to be on the 14th. So is it
think
going
he
to be the
said-
21st? Apex says, I like the trolley on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Yeah, I always like that too. That was a great thing that was, from his house, take you into this
to where
puppet
the
land
king
or whatever.
Yeah,
And-
that was
and-
okay, but
And some of the characters were grotesque, like that one with the little woman puppet
they
that
were
had
kind of
the
weird
witchy,
looking. Yeah,
sort of witchy poo. Yeah, I mean, yeah, some of them were kind of frightening.
but
Okay.
Captain Kangaroo had the moose and the rabbit, and they would trick him into saying something so that they drop ping pong balls on him.
Okay, so maybe it is the 21st, and Hex will be doing that. We did a switch. We were doing the Rex X and Apex show every other week, every other Saturday. So generally you get 2 a month. We've cut that down to once a month, and it's up to that person and the rotation what week they want to have it. Gives us more time to prepare to do a fun show. And we've got stuff going on. Apex has got film back going on. I've got my book that's going to be fulfilling here pretty soon. So I think it's a good switch, if we take that time to better prepare a better show, and
Okay,
to line up guests. See you, Eric.
I think I've tracked down that the comic in Dynamite was the Dynamite Duo.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah.
I'm trying to see if it says who worked on it, because the one I'm looking at here doesn't look so great. Well, here's an interesting. It was written by R.L. Stein's wife.
Oh, wow.
With art credited to a studio.
That's
So-
wild that there's a Stein connection there.
Yeah.
Just real quick here, this is one that I worked on in a little bit last night.
Oh,
on
nice.
the draw stream. He's one of the 43, a bad guy.
Is that another pizza thing?
Yeah. That's one of the super soldier Nazi experiment guys, you got to have like
Okay.
code powers, and
Yeah.
I thought he looked a little like Doomsday with the icicles hanging off of it. And then I kind of did some Kirby Crackle, and I'm not done.
Yeah, I
with
like
this
that
yet.
around the sides.
Yeah.
You should call you should call these pizza portraits.
Pizza portraits. Okay. Yeah.
Or
And I've still got to put the folds in the brain here, but Cortex did a little crackle on that. I've been working on,
nice.
nice, and it's got me back into acrylic painting,
Oh wow.
I haven't done that for a while. And I mean the stack is getting bigger, Mark.
Wow.
Here's another one of the 43, the molten guys, because you got to have you only got so many powers that you can think up, right?
Right.
So,
you have to hit all the elements.
yeah, I'm gonna have to create 40, nearly 43 characters for this super Nazi experiment. But the good thing is I can kind of create them as they go along. What it was is I looked at my sort of staple of characters that I had created through the years, and I said, well, I'm lacking women because I didn't create very many women characters. So I've tried to remedy that, with characters like Midnight that I created, more recently. And then I was kind of lacking in the villains. You got to have a good rogues gallery, right? So I said, well, okay. I came up with the idea of like the Nazi super soldier experiment where like 200 people go in it seems like it's a failure, like they're disintegrated. Why did they come out with individual powers? Well, they were given different injections, and if 200 went in and only 43 came out, but it was kind of like a transporter accident. They most of them went into the future, but a few even went into the past.
Okay.
So I'm going to do Midnight in the Wild West is going to have to deal with one of those. I wanted a character to kind of port into the upper atmosphere and come down. Maybe the molten guy that I showed you will come down and hit a mesa out in Memorial Park or Memorial, wherever, where John Ford shot all
Utah,
the time.
yeah.
Where they have mesas, and just collapse one of those big mesas, into rubble and dust, so kind of like John Byrne. I love him drawing rubble. I like George Perez when he draws debris and rubble,
Yeah. I have a request for I want one of the characters who went back to the past, who fights your cowboy things, to still be alive in the present.
Yeah. Oh,
So
definitely.
one that went into the past, lived back through World War II.
And now see that now these are radicalized psychotic Nazis. And the reason I did that was, okay, I need one origin for all these characters so that I don't have to tell all these individual origins there. And the good thing is it's kind of like a transporter accident. They can pop up in the 50s, the 70s.
Right. You can put them wherever they want.
Present day,
But
the
then,
future, anytime I
but
need
then
a
you
villain.
can have a cool, but then you have a crossover because you can have a story with your characters in the past fighting that same one that your characters in the present is fighting him.
Exactly. And I'm actually going to
years later.
I'm actually going to introduce some of the characters in a story that takes place 250 years in the future of my universe.
Okay.
So you'll get to see older versions of themselves, maybe with different costumes, but you can introduce the characters in any timeline you want.
Yeah, that's a great gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Because anytime it's like, oh man, I need a villain, I can just pick one of those, to kind of make his first appearance, just all of a sudden appears, because it's kind of like a transporter accident. But at the time, the Nazis thought it was a failure, and every one of them got disintegrated.
Yeah.
But and they were already sort of like the SS, very Nazi authoritarian. They were part of the party, right? They were the worst of the worst, and the true believers in the Nazism and what Hitler was doing, and then them being sort of taken apart and put back together in a different, wherever they appear, as driven them insane. So they're psychotic killers.
Yeah.
They're the worst of the worst. If you're talking about
villains. Like you said, it gives you a short end. You don't have to explain how they turned evil. You don't have to explain where they came from. All of them are definitely evil and definitely warped. Yeah. So you get right to it. You don't have to.
And some of them, like transporter accidents, maybe came out a little grotesque, as well. I mean, you can mess with that. I think that's a pretty good premise for, and I get to create new characters. I got to create 43 characters now, for our heroes. And then you can kind of pop them in, once you have that roster, you can kind of pop them in and give, this hero here and that hero there a good rogues gallery.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, I've retro like the Twisted Man. I had already had the Twisted Man created. He's kind of like, if you're not, he's kind of like his whole body's sort of a Rorschach type thing. So every time I draw him in every panel, he's going to have a different pattern because it's kind of shifting within him, a black and white costume. And,
nice.
And, I said, the Twisted Man, he would be a great 43 character. So I already had him created years earlier. So I could, so it's not like I'm creating 43 new ones. Most of them will be, but yeah. And I kind of came up with that with this, this piece here. If I have it here, I may not have it here, but I had an artist draw blanks, and I kind of was creating these new characters, and that's kind of where I came up with the 43 ideal. Was just filling in those blank characters and putting in their likenesses and powers and stuff on that piece. So it's like, yeah, we're bolstering our females and our villains, and so I feel a little bit more comfortable with if I need a villain of the month,
Right.
and we're not going to be on a monthly schedule, but maybe one of these days, who knows? I mean, I'm out to put Marvel and DC out of business, or anybody else for that matter. I mean, it is a race and competition, but
yeah,
it's a lot of
I
fun.
think,
That's kind of my forte anyway. I like creating new characters.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, if you were big into comics in the 70s, 80s, you were reading all these titles, you were keeping track of all these, and there was this thought of who's going to be in the book next month. If you were a Batman fan, you were waiting for whatever your favorite Batman villain. But even in the Marvel ones, you would be like, a Spider-Man villain is showing up in the Fantastic Four this month.
Yeah, and then if you really enjoyed them, hey, that was the first comic I ever read, or whatever. It was a really great story, had a great artist, great story, and then the return of a second appearance was always just as exciting. That you get to see that character that you enjoyed, maybe months earlier or maybe years earlier, and they return somehow.
The villain that got me, because I used to just rarely get comics. I would get them if I was sick or if I was going on a trip, and mom would say, go pick out some comics. And DC used to put out these reprint books over the summer that were fairly big, and they'd have reprints from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s and stuff, and
they'd be square bound.
No, they weren't square bound. They
weren't square bounds.
They were just like dollar comics, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so I had one that had an Old World's Finest. That the villain was the composite Superman.
Yeah,
and I loved that idea.
Where did he get the green skin? Was it kryptonite?
No, it was Brainiac 5.
Oh, okay.
Because he didn't have any of the powers of Superman or Batman. He had all the powers of the Legion of Superheroes.
And he was half and half. He was half Superman.
But he made himself,
and Batman.
he made himself look like, because of Changeling Boy, he could make him look like whatever he wanted. And he made himself look like half Superman and Batman. But there were all these little statues of the Legion of Superheroes. They got struck by lightning. He was a janitor. And somehow all the powers of the Legion of Superheroes got put into him. And but when I started reading comics on a regular basis in the early 80s, they brought Composite Superman back for a World's Finest. I got so excited about it.
Yeah, I think that in World's Finest was my first exposure to Composite Superman.
Yeah, well, he was perfect for that book. He was a villain that looked like the two main heroes. So,
because I was reading World's Finest at that time.
Yeah. And they brought him back a couple of times. I was going to go grab.
Yeah, I always liked him because he was kind of a mashup character. He definitely looks different. He looks kind of janky, really. But I know Ethan Van Sciver's drawn the Composite Superman, and that's a favorite of his.
I mean, it's hard. It's if you love Superman and Batman, you've got a character that looks like Superman and Batman. But
there you go. Yeah. I've actually got one of those that's still on the card, in blister pack.
Okay, yeah. I was so excited when I saw this because I was like, it's Composite Superman.
So the green skins come from Brainiac.
From Brainiac 5, yeah.
Okay, yeah. See, John Fernandez, who did the artwork to Devil Flyer, he's more of a DC guy. I'm more of a Marvel guy. Although I bought a lot of DC as well,
But yeah, it was hard not to be excited about this because you knew the Superman costume, you knew the Batman costume. I mean, you even have the scallops on the Batman half, and then it goes to the side. You got the half of the yellow shield.
Who do you think it kind of reminds me of that old original Star Trek
Oh,
thing where you had half black, half white. Frank Gorshin was one of them.
yeah. Let
Um,
that be my last battlefield or something like that.
yeah,
Or
that
let
was
that be
like
your last battlefield.
that was. I think that's one of the weaker
It
for
really
me.
was.
I mean, it was season 3. I thought it was kind of weak. The
Yeah,
grease paint was so glistening.
yeah,
They
and of
looked
course it was
almost
just
sweaty
yeah. That was one where the message was too in your
on the
face
nose.
obvious. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was like, oh, he's black on this side and this one's black on that side, so they gotta hate each
yeah.
other.
It was
Yeah, that one was a weak.
the civil rights
Yeah,
statement. Yeah,
but
and
it was
the
really
premise.
weak.
I've been chasing him for 50,000 years.
Yeah,
Then you're the
and of
worst
course,
person, and
yeah.
Frank Grosjean, you're the worst. I mean, how did he slip through your fingers for 50,000 years? Come on, man.
Well, and then wasn't the ending that there'd been a
Yeah,
war
the
and
planet
everyone was
had
dead,
already, yeah, because
and
they
they were
warred and
still going to
destroyed each
fight
other.
each other. Yeah, they were still going to fight each other to the death. They were the last
Yeah,
two.
for all eternity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Janet from another planet in the house. Hello, Janet. Hope you're
Hey,
doing
Jen.
well.
Um, well,
Yeah,
listen, Rex,
yeah.
I'm going to
You
have
got to go eat, huh?
to
You're feeling
to
peckish.
eat something. I'm feeling a little peckish. It's 6 o'clock. I usually eat fairly early, but
It is not 6 o'clock. It is 5:52. What the hell?
5:50. Well, that's why I said almost 6 o'clock.
Oh, I did want to ask you, Mark.
Okay.
And I think I probably already did, but maybe not. Just like in LA, I've heard that Houston, Dallas, and some other places in Texas have had some protesters. Did you see any?
Yeah.
I mean, have you heard any
Uh,
news about protesting in some of the Texas cities? And when you were in Atlanta, did you see any protesters? Because where I stayed, there was a Black Lives Matter guy protesting every day.
when I was in Atlanta, apparently I was in a really bad part of town. I saw
Oh, really?
mostly saw drug addict homeless people. These guys who were kind of
Yeah.
shaking and they would stumble to one side as they walked.
Uh-huh.
So it didn't look like. In fact, I was glad. Originally, they had said that the awards thing was going to be late at night, and they did it earlier because I was worried about getting an Uber to come pick me up.
Yeah,
that
you were
late.
telling me that you were thinking that it was going to be like at 11 p.m. at night.
That was what they originally said because they were going to have it. It was part of another film festival, and that film festival was going to have its awards at 10 o'clock, and then they were going to wait till 11 o'clock. But they went ahead and did the awards like at 8 o'clock during our panel thing. So thankfully, that was.
Did you get any rest before you had to go to that thing?
No, unfortunately, I got there. I think I got to the hotel like maybe an hour before, so it really
Wow.
wasn't any time. And then the bad part was that my flight out on Sunday wasn't until the evening, so you had to check out of your hotel at like 11, and
Yeah.
so I ended up
And fill
spending
that time. Yeah.
I had to spend like 3 or 4 hours in the Atlanta airport, and that's just boring to have to do that. But it was fine. As far as here, I do know there have been some downtown, but I don't know how. I don't go downtown very often, and so I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but I don't watch the local news anymore. In fact, I've kind of had the television turned off for the last.
If I
couple
hear
weeks.
the news, it's probably on the radio, like talk radio, while I'm
Yeah,
driving.
on the internet, if I see like a headline or something, I might click on it. But I don't think we've had anything severe here. No, I have not heard about them setting cars on fire or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
The only reason I knew it was going on was because of radio. When I go out at night to work, they would have it on radio, so.
Okay. Yeah, well, if I go through like Facebook or Twitter or go to YouTube or something, invariably Twitter is always trying to show me people getting mugged or things like that.
Well,
there's like a section
amazing
that you can.
It's amazing that, what Biden was doing, how soon we forget, jailing people for the January 6th incident uh,
Right.
and without due process. I mean, I want to hear more about that. I want to hear some people suing the Biden administration or whatever for them.
It was,
I mean, and I heard
yeah,
horror stories of them being abused by guards and other stuff. Um, you know, uh, and now
yeah.
they're saying that Trump is not within his rights.
It's
And
all
he said, I'm
partisan.
going after the worst of the worst. And out in LA, there probably are a lot of worst of the worst,
Yeah, it's all partisan. If your guy does it, it's great. If the other guy does it, it's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Everything is that, and it doesn't matter how bad the thing is that happens. There's still just it. Yeah, it's infuriating to do. So I was a journalism major. My degree that I got from college was in journalism, and I remember what journalism is supposed to be. I don't think it's ever been what it's supposed to be, but I remember what it's supposed to be. And there's this thing that I see all the time now, which drives me crazy. They just recently did it with Trump and the arresting the mayor of California. So what you do is you go to somebody. The old standby used to be like with George Bush. They would say, he would say, well, we have troops that are going in here. And a reporter would ask him a loaded question. He would say, will you rule out using nuclear weapons? And Bush would say, I'm not ruling out using anything. And then suddenly the headline is Bush considering using nuclear weapons to do it. That's not what he said. That's not even remotely close. So they did to this immigration guy. They asked him that would you arrest Governor Newsom if he blocked the way? And the guy said, I would arrest anyone who's breaking the law.
Breaking federal law, yeah.
Right. That turned into they are planning to arrest Governor Newsom, which was never what was said. And then it becomes a huge story, but it's all baloney. It was a reporter asking a loaded question.
Well, Newsom, Trump met with Governor Newsom and discussed, and he told him plainly why he was there and what he was going to do, and he even lied about meeting the president. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I really don't watch the news anymore just because it infuriates
We had Doc
me.
Blaylock on, and he said that he felt like with the most recent comments from Newsom that he kind of has sabotaged any chance of him, actually be an effective run for the presidency. I hope that's, because he's a disaster.
Yeah. No, I don't see that, and frankly, that's 4 years away. So I'm not really concerned.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people are really that concerned, But I was kind of wanting to talk to you or Apex, somebody who's in Texas, because I had heard that some of the major cities like Dallas, Houston, that they were protesting and how bad it was compared to LA. I know it wasn't going to be as bad as LA, but.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything of any like property damage or anything, so I don't know. But I can't tell you that it hasn't happened. I do know that that I have heard that there were protests in Dallas.
Well, I think the left's probably losing their minds about right now. See, so authoritarian. I mean, that's what Newsom's saying about Trump anyway, and he's well within his rights. I mean, Eisenhower, Bush, they did similar things.
Well, it's unusual to think that you're not supposed to protect property.
Yeah,
that's kind of one of the edicts of why you have a government is so that you don't have the Mongols coming in and
foreign and domestic
invading. Yeah,
right.
Well, I was meaning like real Mongols, but yeah, you would get together and say, hey, let's put together some kind of protective force because these Mongols are running over into Europe and killing everybody they find. So let's
and the Mongols, I mean, they would go over the walls by stacking up the dead and climbing over the dead to get over the wall.
Yeah,
I mean,
those
they
guys
were
were not messing around. Yeah.
the Mongols terrorized the Western civilization at the time. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
they
Can you
were
imagine
the original
frightening that was?
blitzkrieg,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. I was just saying, can you imagine how frightening just the name was when you'd hear
Yeah.
these stories about what they would do? And,
Mhm.
you know, I
It's
was watching
similar
this.
to what the Ottoman Empire, the Muslims did later. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the drastic Vlad the Impaler, what he had to do to keep them out of Romania. I think it
Right.
was. Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah,
he
I
killed like
watched.
2,000 of his own people and stake them out. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to go in there. You know, this
Yeah.
guy's great. And
I watched
he
a
made it an
series
art
recently
form
about
because,
Genghis Khan.
you know, I saw something on the History Channel where they actually said if you taper this right and they would go through the anus all the way through to your mouth, you could survive on that steak like that going through your bodies without nicking any major organs. And some people lived up to like 3 or 4 days that way.
Starving to death. And
I mean, that's
yeah,
worse
that would
than
be awful.
crucifixion, you know, being staked out
Eh,
like that. You know, it's
yeah.
amazing.
And
The cruel.
neither of them would be a good day. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no.
Janet says that she's heard that most of the protests will be tomorrow, and they will be burning flags on Flag Day. So I guess it's Saturday. People are off work, so
Yeah.
they can.
And
they
they're
can
well
go out.
funded, you know, I believe. And I think Trump is going to have a birthday coming up, right? And
Yeah, I
they're
think
going to be protesting that because he's going to be doing something with the military then.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're well organized. They want to keep it up, distract. You know, look over here while we're doing this, and they're still.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as effective as it was, you know, like say when Portland, Oregon was going on under Obama, wasn't it? You know.
Yeah, I was really frustrated with all of that because you can't, you know, people live in those buildings, and you know, people get hurt, and there was this seeming idea that, oh no, you can't complain about it, and I was like, no, you. I know in
Yeah.
Dallas there were real
They
issues
can
with that.
they can blame
because-
shift. Yeah, they absolutely, Janet. They want MAGA to start fights. Absolutely. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
people are pushed to the brink on this, especially if they live down on the border because they've had enough. I mean, if they just don't get it that most Americans want the borders secure. If you don't have secure borders, you don't have a nation. You
Yeah.
know, and
Well,
you've got to be sovereign and control your
yeah,
own borders.
there again, that's the same thing about the talking about the partisanship
Mhm.
is, you know, the left just said, well, we're going to go the exact opposite of building a wall. We're going to say anybody and then everybody can just come in there. There's no border.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. You, in a sense, what they did was they encouraged a lot of people to travel all the way up here. A lot of them get killed. A lot of them don't make
Oh
the
yeah.
trip
Oh yeah.
through there because you know, and you hear stories about that all the time. And the
Mhm.
ones who managed to do this because the Democrats promised them that they were going to be a-okay these are the ones who are being deported now, and they're still blaming the Republicans, but they were tricked into coming here.
Yeah.
It's awful. I don't like any of this stuff.
Yeah, and we got to reverse it and get it under control for sure. I mean, uh, you know, it does affect our jobs market. It does affect a great many things, you know, and how many horror stories of rape and murder do you have to do to and I know what is it, that MS whatever, the gangs. I mean, that's the worst of the worst, and I'm glad he's targeting instead of this made up stuff like, you know, under Biden, where what was it, the white supremacy group or whatever that was supposedly, he even brought it up in the debate. I mean, they make this stuff up, and it's, you know,
Yeah,
it's yeah.
I
crazy.
just it's all about keeping people.
Well, I mean,
giving
it was
money.
they're really throwing over the the black class as their main voting base for a more brown class. I mean, it's all about
Well,
votes. And
it's about votes, but it's mostly about money. And the
well, I
only
mean,
way you
Texas
can,
is taking a lot of it. If they can
the
flip
only
Texas
way
or
that
Florida, they
yeah,
can
the only
win every election from now on. It's
the
about holding
only
on to power ultimately.
the only way they can keep going is by getting lots of donations. And you have to
Yeah.
push people to get them to give money. They'll give you their votes sometimes,
MS-13.
but you really have to make them angry to get them to give you money. And that's what this is about. So
yeah,
you
churning
have
it up,
you have
keeping
to,
the pot
you have to
stirred up.
anger the base, and
Mhm.
they're doing it on the right just as much as the left. You've got, you know, these crazy stories, you know, that if you don't give money, that these unrealistic things are going to happen. But both sides do it. They push so that you will give them money. And if you get people wound up enough, you've got people who don't have enough money to live, who are giving money to political candidates because they
Mhm.
feel like they have to do it to save the planet. It's all bullshit.
Well, I mean, just like the cages on the border, you know, oh, that was built under Obama, but Trump got the blame for it in his first administration. You know, he's putting people
Yeah,
in cages. Come on,
Janet's right that Texas is purple.
breaking up families,
But
and then when you would see them on film, it was young men coming over.
you know
It
what?
wasn't
I
families. No,
I
for the
would
most part.
say this. I would say this to Janet. The so-called red states are 51% to 48%. The blue states are 50 to 48 or something. The line is so in the center that you're talking about the difference in most of these states is just a few percentage points is why they're one side or the other. There's a lot of half and half, and
Mhm.
the people in the middle are the ones who steer the boat. I watched a thing about the prohibition, and they, you know, when you do an amendment, you have to get every state to ratify it. And so when they would go out to try to get these states to ratify prohibition, they realized it's not about getting the most votes, it's about getting the most of the undecided votes. If you can sway 1 or 2%, you can win the election. And that's the way they got prohibition pushed through.
Uh,
Anyways,
I've just got one last question for you, Mark.
okay.
Where does the hand go up into your icon? And
It's virtual.
whose hand is
So
it?
it's virtual, so there is no, it's a virtual hand. And yeah, no, there's no I actually though wish I had enough money to make some actual puppets of the Star Trek characters. I would love to have a couple of them just to have, but they're very expensive.
August says the composite man came back a second time.
He did come back a second time during the original stuff, and then they brought him back. I remember around maybe like 84 or something. They brought him back in World's Finest again.
Mhm.
But
They
I
introduced
don't.
around that time some new characters too. I think Null and Void were a couple characters. I mean, they were kind of interesting. I don't know what got me on a World's Finest bent, but they had some pretty good. You know, I think I
Yeah,
read it maybe up to the last issue, or you know, because it was canceled a little bit
I
later.
remember. I know they've got something similar more recently, but I remember back in the late 70s, they had a thing in World's Finest they would do that it was somehow Batman and Superman had teenage sons that were also Superman and Batman. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I never quite understood that. You know,
I don't. I think they were imaginary stories, but
I
I
think
do.
so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one where they
You had
crash
one called
landed on another
Nightwing, I
planet.
think, Batman's son Nightwing, and then the
Yeah, maybe that was what it
Superman
was.
something. Yeah, so they already had Nightwing, so they kind of gave it to Robin. You know, later
Yeah,
they already had that copyrighted, so that was kind of We'll take
I had an
this
issue-
Nightwing name, give it to Robin.
Probably, I don't remember what year it was, but it was in the 70s, and it was one of those, and they crash landed on another planet and were stuck there. I remember it being really good. I'll have to look through my books and see if I still have that, or maybe it was A Brave and the Bold. I don't remember.
Welcome to the show, Janet from another planet.
Hello.
There's Janet. Hi, Janet.
I'm all right.
You're
to-
looking, orange man bad. What are you doing? You look very
Well,
orange.
I'm sunburned a little bit. I went and
Are
tan.
you?
Uh-oh.
And plus, I got my lights not as bright. I can turn them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Not as bad, but yeah, I tan every other day, so to try to keep a healthy look.
I think Rex
Yeah,
is in
I'm
the
all
same boat
into
that I am.
anything when you talk about this type of stuff. This is the kind of stuff I talk about on the Friday Night Shit Show. So, and tonight I'm gonna be dressed up as an alien. So,
Okay.
as my true form because it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, so I'll have my my whole get up on tonight. But the sad truth is that they've been sending people from Oregon, Washington State, New York, all the other blue states, as many as they could for businesses or whatever, to Florida and Texas because they knew after the 2020 steal that they got caught and that they wouldn't be able to do that again. And look how hard they had to fight for Arizona, and look how much fraud everyone saw, right, with Katie Hobbs. Even though she's broke the law many times, everyone can see how corrupt it is. So they can either be openly corrupt like that and try to win, but they lost all the swing states this time because of the corruption, because people saw through it and went out in record numbers for 77 million people to vote for Trump, right? Well, they're not going to get away with that every time. So they've got to start swinging the states. And when I first saw the very first video that came out showing a transgender reading to kindergartners, I saw that video and I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. I can't believe they do that in California. And they said, this is Austin, Texas. And I went, what? So I'm telling
you don't think stuff like that reaches you, but just here in Jonesboro, which we're about 80,000 in population now, we're kind of small. But even at our local library, they fired one of the librarians for letting some of that trash for young children in the library. And then immediately after that, you see signs like right across from my house, support your local library. No, I'm not supporting that type of stuff. It puts me off on the library, and that's sad.
Well, the thing is that the people have become complacent and left the cities because it was too crowded, or they didn't like the way that people were doing things, instead of taking action by working the polls and trying to get people to register to vote and to try to run for office for city council or whatever to make differences, right? Instead, they just leave because they rather just do their job, go home and take care of their kids. They don't want to, and now it's following them out. The thing is, now they're in rural areas and the cities are voting. If you go in, they're all blue. They vote blue, everything blue. And then you wonder why you have nothing but liberal rags. Because the first time I picked up the Dallas
Morning News,
paper and started reading it, I was like, what the hell is this shit?
Well, I mean, a lot of
I had relatives in Texas, and
a lot of the kind of seizing controls is the census, right? That you can reconfigure things for your advantage.
And you guys have whole neighborhoods being built down there to just put in for, okay, you have two boys and a daughter, okay, and you've worked real hard and you live in a trailer or whatever, okay, you're just trying to make ends meet. Maybe you work for Tyson or Pilgrim's Pride, wherever you work. Okay. And you're paying your bills, you're doing everything. Your kids got scholarships to go to college. Everything's getting better. Then all of a sudden you find out all these illegal aliens are getting homes and approval for loans, and they can't even speak English. They can't write English. They can't do any of these things. But then your sister's son tries to apply for a loan to buy a house because they have a job and they've had a good job for 2 years, and they get told no, they don't have good enough credit. So when they're bypassing American citizens for illegals because the numbers look good, and then they can redistrict around You see what I mean? Move people around to where the votes matter, because like in California, if enough people leave California, they lose seats. And when they
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
seats, they lose mouths passing stuff
Right.
and getting things to be on a bill. That's where all this USAID and all this other frivolous thing come from. And they knew Trump can't just say, oh, I'm going to sign an executive order and get rid of it. Why? Because Congress is the one that is allowed to spend money. So they have to go to the Supreme Court to get permission to bypass something or to get rid of something, any of those things. And they can only do that if Congress votes to get rid of USAID, dissolve it. And why they're just sitting on their ass doing nothing, I don't know. I mean, you'd think they'd be worried that they have one seat extra. And then if it's not that, then JD Vance has to vote to tie, right? Well, you'd think they'd want to win more seats in 2026, but they're not really doing anything to earn my vote.
I mean, Florida's kind of, due to the governor, has kind of been, passing some stuff to kind of secure and shore up his state. So they've really been shipping a lot of these under Biden illegals to Texas. And Texas is so big and has enough rural areas.
Typically, though, if you've got a strong president or an unpopular president, the midterms usually do go the other way. There does seem to be a sense that
counterbalance.
We want some kind of balance where not one side doesn't have complete control. But Jen, it's real nice to meet you. I've been trying to get away from Rex for about 20 minutes.
Come back
well, I just got excited when I
it.
came in and you guys were actually talking about stuff that I'm interested in talking about besides nerd stuff. No, I love talking about politics or anything to do with the military because I'm an Air Force brat, and I've had my channel taken down multiple times because I talk about exactly this and about child trafficking and stuff. So
no, this was one of Rex's clever ploys to try to keep me on. He keeps every time I get near the end, he goes, "I have one more question for you."
No, really, my last question for you was where the hand went in your icon. Then Janet.
But no, But thanks again for having me, Rex. I will. I'm sure see you soon. It's always fun to do it. And Janet, nice meeting you. Good luck with your alien stuff tonight. And now that I know it's Friday the 13th, I'm going to go hide so that nothing bad happens.
Oh, you didn't remember?
So what?
You didn't remember it's Friday the 13th?
No, I didn't think about it.
My daughter's birthday today. She was born on Friday the 13th. Not with a knife in her hands. Or a hockey mask.
Bye, everybody. I'll see you guys.
Okay, Mark.
Soon.
Take care, bro. Yeah, it's good to see you, Janet.
Thank you. I've been working on the yard. I went to the gym and I finished a picture. I decoupaged it. I'm letting it dry. And then Monday I'll take it to their client and they're going to go and get it framed. So I'm excited about it.
But that's it. I think you should maybe do your hair orange and, orange yourself up and maybe wear even an orange jumpsuit or something at some point,
Well, I could.
Talking political stuff.
I could, but what are you using? Are you using StreamYard?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is weird because I'd have to go get to my StreamYard real quick and see, but it didn't look like it. But I guess it's because your background's darker, so my lighting is affected or something.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's.
See, if I get closer, I get lighter. It's just that I don't have enough bright light, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, Janet from another planet, a glow color.
Right here.
Yeah.
See, and that affects it a little bit too.
It's very hypnotic,
Well, I can make different designs. I can make bubbles. I can make little squares.
Oh yeah, can you demonstrate that a little bit?
Yeah, hold on for a second. Let me get it on my.
Okay.
It's on this other phone right here. It's on this app.
So you do that through an app, I guess?
Mm-hmm. It's called Groovy Home.
Wow.
Yeah, and I turn it on. Let's see, I'll do bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. Can you do like a 4th of July, red, white, and blue? Has it got something
No,
like
it
that?
doesn't do that. You know what? That's really bad. It doesn't do anything for the 4th of July at
Yeah.
all. It
Right.
says all festivals. It says it has Christmas stocking, a Santa Claus, Christmas tree, a gingerbread man, all kinds of stuff, a pumpkin, pizza monster,
Hey, Bone.
nothing, and Halloween stuff, but nothing for the 4th.
Yeah.
Pretty sad. It's probably because it's
kinda
made
sad.
from another country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're trying to be, all inclusive. They don't have
Yeah.
Canada Day or anything like that on there. So
Do you have any special plans for like 4th of July? I mean, I'm
Well,
kind of excited for
this
not
next
necessarily
weekend,
this year, but in 2006, because I'm old enough and you are to remember the bicentennial year. And now we can celebrate, 275 years.
yeah, that's why I was kept wondering why they were. I don't know. It just seemed like I'm seeing more and more people. They did the different flags from the different countries, but it was so funny how I didn't see any Palestinian flags. Did you? In those riots, it was only Mexican flags.
No, I heard that there were some though, I'd listen to Mark Levin on
Mhm.
talk radio,
Yeah, but you're not seeing the photos. See, a lot of people
yeah.
have to see pictures to believe it, or they just think anybody can say it. And now
Yeah,
even
exactly.
if you see a photo, they're even saying, "Oh, that's fake. That's photoshopped."
I mean, that is,
So-
we've become kind of jaded, with what we believe. Seeing is believing. Yeah, I mean, it's the old adage, a picture paints, paints a bit. What is the saying? Is greater than 1,000 words or something. A
yeah,
picture.
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, and the left really uses that effectively. The kind of like you're putting adults and children in cages, and then they go down to the border and show that. But
Yeah, but
on
that
the
was
right,
because
they didn't even put them in.
the media is paid to do it. See,
Yeah.
Every day, if you get on your local news, you're going to hear about all kinds of cool things that's happening around you, right? You're going to hear about a dog being saved by his master that got grabbed by a gator, all kinds of good things. But then you're going to hear some bad stuff about a car accident, different things like that. But as we go higher up the food chain for the big major things, they want more clicks. They want more people to tune in. And how do you do that? I mean, just go to YouTube at the very top and you see the googly eyes and the standout crazy stuff to get you to click on it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not even about whatever
have
you think you're
have you
clicking
seen
on.
any protesters where you're at? Because
No,
I did
nothing. I haven't
see
seen a single thing.
I did see at one intersection. Now this has been months ago, last year, but there was some. They were all dressed in white, and they had red in their crotch area, and they were protesting against circumcision, which is crazy, But even here, like I said, the librarian thing, you would think, okay, we're kind of, isolated, only 80,000 people, but they got to be well funded.
But the thing is, remember at the Capitol when they were trying to put up the satanic statue? Remember that?
Yeah, in Little Rock, yeah.
Two of my sisters were throwing a tantrum about it, saying that shouldn't be allowed. And I said, do we have the 10 Commandments there? And she said, yes. And I said, well, honestly, freedom of religion means freedom of religion. And
freedom of speech. Right.
And freedom of speech. So
that may be speech that you disagree with vehemently.
And that's what I told her.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to see a satanic bullhead and bullshit up there. But if they build it, they got to take care of it, right? Hi, Bone. The thing is that if we don't let them do their piddly shit like that when it comes to statues and stuff, then they shouldn't let us do ours. And I'm not going to take my 10 Commandments down just to help them, because that's what they want. They want us to say, well, I'd rather take ours down than them have one. See, because we didn't, now they just look like dumbasses. That's how I look
Well,
at it.
you know, when Pelosi and all like they were talking about, you know, taking down like Robert E. Lee statues, things like that of the
Mhm.
Civil War. Well, that's their history because the Confederacy was the Democratic Party. They're doing historical revisionism, aren't they?
Mm,
In a
It,
way,
it just depends. It depends on your point of view. I
yeah.
mean, it's
Well,
just
I
like I
mean,
try
they
to
were
explain to my sister too.
they what's asinine is they even took down like in World War II, Black Squadron or whatever, you know, statue. I forget what it was, but it was a, you know, they're supposed to be for civil rights, and they're, you know, taking down a really a significant Black history moment. You know,
Because that's not what they're really for. They're
yeah,
paid to do
exactly,
whatever. Okay.
yeah,
Just think about it. They hated us because we would go to Trump rallies and we'd have to pay to go. People would stand in rain and stand for
mhm,
hours in the heat to go to a Trump rally. And they were
yeah.
always packed. Every tiny little town they'd go to, they were packed with people
Have you
because
been to
people
one?
wanted to go. No,
Have you
every
been?
time I've had
No.
a chance to go, something was going on. But you were talking about that earlier about what my plans are. And this weekend, tomorrow, I'll play DD, which, you know, or Pathfinder, whatever you want to call it, with Bruce. He's the GM. And
Mhm.
then we're going to do the movie The Abyss on Sunday. And so I can't wait to review that movie. It's going to be a lot of fun. But then the following weekend, I'm going on Saturday, I'm going to the state fair to the country, you know, the rock concert with Kid Rock and all of them.
Mhm.
I'm going to that concert. And then the following week, I'm going to drive to Dallas and fly to Las Vegas for a week to see my daughter. So it's going to be fun.
That's great. Yeah, yeah.
But I'll be back by the 4th. I'll fly home on the 2nd.
So does your daughter live out in Vegas?
Mhm. Right now
Uh,
she does. She travels for her job. She works for Amazon.
when my sister was
Amazon
here and we
corporate.
met for the very first time, because I was adopted and it was only June 30th,
Mhm.
2 years ago that, you know, she contacted me through Facebook, and
Yeah.
we met for the very first time in early April. And we went to an IHOP for what was supposed to be breakfast, but we ate lunch. And one of the waitresses 5 days earlier had moved from Vegas. She lived out in Vegas, and she
Mhm.
moved there with her husband because they were kind of like following. He was in construction, following the jobs, you know. And she said,
Yeah.
"I like it here in Arkansas." I said, "How did you wind up from Vegas here in Northeast Arkansas? You know, that's kind of a switch, isn't it? The humidity and the mosquitoes and all that comes with Arkansas, you know, and
Mhm.
us being sort of rural." And she's like, "Yeah, but I like the Southern hospitality." You know, she likes it here. So compared to
Yeah.
Vegas, but hadn't met that many people from Vegas. When I was in Atlanta in
I have
late
cousins
April,
there.
I met a guy, and hopefully he'll contact me. He hasn't yet, but he was from Vegas, and
Mhm.
he was there on some kind of training thing, and he's got a collection of tennis shoes, like over 800 pair of shoes, not just tennis shoes, but. And I said, "Well, do you wear some of them?" And he said, "Yes, but now some are too expensive to wear." And I said, "Well, how much do you think your collection is worth?" And they said, "Probably." That's an interesting question that you asked me that, because I recently covered that with the insurance people to insure the shoe collection, and they said about $250,000.
Wow.
Is there anything that you obsessively collect like that? Because I had a friend that
Yeah,
had
I
like
bought the
50
Trump
pairs of
shoes.
Huh?
I
Yeah.
bought the Trump shoes. I bought those, and I only wear them when I'm in my office. Like I'll probably wear
Okay.
them tonight.
Okay.
And you know, and they're autographed and everything. So I'll keep those, and I keep the box and the original wrapping. And you know, I just collect anything I want. If I see something I want it, I buy it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
See, I've got stuff all over my house, just everywhere. You know,
Well,
like
Janet, tell people when your show is tonight on
oh,
YouTube.
tonight at 9:10 Central, and I'm going to be dressed up as this character,
Oh, yeah.
Janet from
Do you,
Another Planet,
now,
because supposedly,
do you
yeah,
wear contacts with that?
I have these. They're like tanning
Hmm.
goggles with
Mhm.
fake eyelashes on them, basically. But that's what I wear. But the thing is that I have a wig because I took my old Andorian wig and I got an airbrush thing and everything, and I paint myself green, and I have a whole head to toe costume to wear. So hopefully
Now, when
one
you
day I'll
dress
get to
up,
do it.
when you cosplay as an Andorian, do you have a little hip knife?
Yeah, I have all types of weapons.
Because
You
I
know,
mean, I think they always carry knives, right?
yeah, daggers.
Yeah, daggers. They
Throwing
Spock
daggers and
was,
stuff.
I mean, Kirk was stabbed by one of those.
Yeah, they've
Yeah,
used them on many people.
yeah. I kind of like.
But
I think maybe they did a lot of the Andorian stuff in Enterprise, which I thought was really, a strong point because the actor that played in the uh, was it the Rejuvenator horror series or whatever? He played one of the main Andorians.
well, also
Reanimator movies.
Reanimator.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
Slave girls, the
Yeah,
Orion
the green
slave girls,
slave
they
girls.
also like to use daggers.
Yeah. Did you know Lou
Something to
Ferrigno
hide.
played a male of those
Yeah. Did you
species?
watch the series called what was it called? Dang, I lost it. We did a review on that whole. They went from the last episode of the original Star Trek series to the first movie, and they filled it in, and it was a series on here. And Lou Ferrigno was in one of the episodes,
Yeah. That's I
reprising
kind of
his
like that.
character.
Yeah, and I mean
And there was
it's
quite a
pretty
few
cool
people
because
that
he's
came in.
green like the Hulk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, it was really cool getting to
Was
see
he
him do that.
bald in that as well? Bald?
No, he had hair
He had hair. Okay, this time. Okay.
in
Uh,
the series. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I cannot
uh,
remember the name of it. I just
the
went blank.
slave girls do the pheromones are in control. They kind of control the men. That's kind of
Well, that's one reason why the men decided to enslave them, because the women could use their womanly wiles, to get
Yeah.
what they wanted and to control the men and make them fight, make them go to war, whatever they wanted. So the whole thing was about trying to get them to try to treat each other as equals and have feelings for each other instead of trying to, boss everyone around. But everyone has that, one of those personality traits. Narcissists is what they were, basically.
yeah.
If you think about it, dig down in there. But yeah, it was a really good series. It was one of my favorite. I cried watching it, most of the episodes, when Bruce and I watched one episode after the other, and then we did a review on it. It was so good, and they did such a good job because they loved the characters. They loved the show. And Scotty, the actor that played Scotty, his real son played Scotty on
Yeah.
this little show too. I wish I could remember the name. Can you remember the name of the
Star
series?
Trek Continues.
Yeah, Continues. That's it. Oh man, they
You
were
can
good.
watch all 10 episodes on YouTube. When I first
Mhm.
got on YouTube, I watched all those. They're lovely. And the the Romulan woman that seduced Spock, but really he duped her to get the cloaking device. Her daughter played her part in
Yeah.
Star Trek Continues, kind of like Scotty's son played Scotty. And it took me some adjusting to get used to, okay, this isn't really Spock, McCoy, and all like that. But I mean, they did bring in like the actor that played Apollo in the first one, and they brought back Sulu with the daughter in a story, and and so they really did a good job tributing.
I
I
loved
really,
it because it
I
was
really,
so
I really kind
heartfelt.
of look at those 10 episodes as canon. They did such a well job with it.
They did a better job than any of the newer
Mhm.
whole series. There's no compassionate love for the original Star Trek in those compared to that. That's why if they would take people that help write fan films and put them in with their group and say, this is what we see as fans and what we think would be good, like they did with this Star Trek Continues, because they couldn't make any money, because
Yeah.
they would get sued or whatever else. And they put all their own time and effort into it because they loved the show. They
And
loved
to
what it
build
did
that
for
bridge set and everything. And then, they
Mhm.
also had like the shuttlecraft. I mean, it was built on the cheap, but you never really saw that.
It didn't matter the outlandish music. I mean, everything about it. The campiness of it, everything about it, I just loved. I just loved it. I couldn't. I was brought to tears multiple times because I was so impressed on how much love they cared, how much the actors, the people behind the scenes, when they did the behind the scenes takes. And you got to see the people that are pushing the little doors back and forth and all of that.
I think a lot of
wonderful.
especially when it comes to Star Trek, the fan stuff is outstripping, and even the studios are like, it's kind of like in comics where the reprints are outselling the new stuff because nobody wants the woke stuff. And then they've got lesser quality artists and writers.
Why aren't they asking them to help them write a new series? You see what I mean? When are they going to take a needle and poke themselves and let some hot air out and decide, okay, it's time for us to humble ourselves enough to try to actually make what the fans want. Once they decide to do
I'm
that,
a big proponent, at least in the comics part of it, which is kind of niche anyway, and almost dying out in a way. But it's still a great form of entertainment. I believe an American art form. One of the few, maybe 5 different things are uniquely American art form that we kind of birthed in comics is one of them. Jazz music, another one. And I hate to see it dying or it going to like manga for the young people. And I'm here to kind of stop that, and then speak out against wokeism, as well with, but not overly preachy and beat people over the head with it.
The best way to get young people is to get grandpa or dad to sit down with the son or daughter young that's wants to one day be an astronaut or something and start watching the original Star Trek with them. That's what my dad did with me. And each time I watch it, I had to ask lots of questions. I didn't understand a lot of stuff that was going on as I got older watching these with my dad. And every time he was deployed, I had to wait, but I didn't want to watch any of it without my dad. And I was the only daughter out of all of us girls that even cared about watching it. But my dad liked it. And he talked to me about it. And I just could one day think how cool it's going to be able to push a button and have a plate of food just be made for you. Things like that. I just thought, and the holodeck, I thought that was just, some of the things were just so amazing to me.
Oh, yeah.
And now look, stuff's happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know scientists are actually trying to work on transporter technology. And I mean, they're really trying to make a lot of the science that were way ahead of its time in Gene Roddenberry's original Star Trek series. They're really trying to bring that into reality. And to answer August's question, yes, she is a Ryan character, right, in the Menagerie. That's first time in the pilot, the cage, with the slave girl, a little bit that they did is absolutely that's where it all stemmed from. Was actually the pilot with Jeffrey Hunter. Anyway, we're going to get out of here, Janet. Yeah, I know you got your show.
Thank you so much. I told you I'd jump in one day if I ever got a chance.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
I just was working on some stuff, and I went, and I saw you pop up on my.
We're dynamite together. We're a powder keg. If we ever got on politics, I think I'd probably get struck down too. Because and I have been knocked off YouTube for saying that the election was rigged and things like that, and. Yeah, Sean Ryan, unfortunately, our YouTube overlords are,
Sean Ryan did an interview with Jim Caviezel, and they talked about Jesus Christ and being a Christian and child trafficking and stuff like that, and he lost his episode. So,
Wow.
And it's really sad to say that, but guess what? People say, well, why do you even use YouTube if you're worried that you can't talk on it? I said, because the few people that do follow me on YouTube, I'm not going to give up on them. I'm not quitting just because they don't like what I have to say. I had the freedom of speech.
Yeah. Right. Well, say the magic words, Janet. We'll get out of here, which are keep collecting.
Is what? Oh, keep collecting.
See,